Oh, where's my
Got a
list?
countdown. There's a countdown.
Hello. Yes. Hopefully, this is live. I'm just waiting to see.
Great. My
No, it
poster
says
keeps falling down.
it
Getting
says it
sick
says
of it.
I'm live.
Good evening all.
Oh, it's put us up differently. Good evening, everybody. Indeed, welcome. Finally, I've just checked it to say that it works. Studio One, we're live for this evening's live update. My name's Liam. I'm your host for this evening, and I'm pleased to say I'm joined by our resident wine connoisseur, Stu. Stu, good evening, sir.
It's ready. It's uncorked. I'll stand by my word. If it's the 5%, I'll enjoy it. If it's not, I'll put it back on the shelf.
And our resident geo-technical dude and all-round cool guy, Magic Trades. Good evening, sir. How are you?
Hello,
Welcome back to the show.
Yeah, good to be here, mate. Looking forward to it.
How is life in your university with a PhD? Is it all going well?
You know what it is? It is going well. I've got my teeth stuck into it now. I'm doing stuff. I travel to London a lot for the work I do now. Go to the Natural History Museum. This week I'm not there, but probably will be next week. So yeah, it's good. It's going very well. I'm pleased to say that because it's been a long time getting here. I have to be honest, but now I feel like I'm getting to a point where, I'm getting the data I need. I'm understanding the data to some extent, and I should be able to produce the goods at the end of it. Sorry if anything's clattering. It's just my messy desk, and my poster keeps falling down.
That's your Pamela Anderson poster falling down all the time.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it is.
Well, I mean, that's my question. What is the poster of?
It's actually of Star Wars Rogue One, the film.
Very good.
It's a good film.
I genuinely didn't know what you was going to say, but Star Wars is, I guess, is cool enough.
It's very cool.
Stu, what I wanted to start with, and actually Magic you as well, because you were there. Last Thursday, you guys went out for a little bit of a jolly into the big old town of London. Met up and had a good chat. Now, Stu, on your way home, being a little drunk, as unfortunately your reputation precedes you, you just have to sit yourself down on a park bench and give us a bit of a running commentary.
Every 6 weeks as well. That's equally possible, but.
Now, some of the words and some of the phrases were absolutely fantastic in this. The man himself, a consummate professional, was very, very impressed with his openness and his answering of questions. I respect said phrases. Now, I just wanted to, I was going to touch on a few things, but my printer failed to work, so I couldn't get it working. But I just wanted to touch on a few points for you both, and just to get your take while we were waiting for the results to appear this evening on RNS from Newcrest. Yeah. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about what happened? Where was it? Where did you meet to start with? Where is the town hall? Stu.
Well, Magic was ahead of me. You were in the Cheshire Cheese to begin with, so I was a little late, having left work, which is just up the road, and popped into the Cheshire Cheese, a well-known pub in the city of London, and there was a nice long table. You're never sure. You walk in and you sort of, I think the chap I walked in with, who's a broker, who's quite a confident gent, walked past and went, "Are you guys all GGP?" But I'd kind of just walked straight past the table because there were so many people there. There was a good, I don't know, 15, felt like 15, 20 people there. So yeah, unfortunately, I didn't get what I'd hoped to sort of walk around the whole table and greet everyone. But Magic, you were there a little earlier, and I met Bamps for the first time and a few others. So it was great, and yeah, quickly had a pint and got through 3/4 of it before we walked up the road, and then went into the centre.
Yeah, I mean it's where Tower. So if you go to Tower Hill Station, you basically walk up the road, and underneath. It's kind of like it's not a tunnel, or like it's kind of basically underneath some sort of like covering. There's this pub called the Cheshire Cheese. I got there, got changed because I was very sweaty, and from the underground, And yeah, there's a big long table of people. Everybody's lovely. I've met some people before, some new faces that I haven't seen, and it's really lovely when people come up to you and they tell you, thank you for doing the presentations, or thank you to people thanking BAMPS for doing a lot of the calculations and providing a lot of research. It's really reassuring that people really appreciate that sort of work and respect it. So very welcoming environment. And then the actual place where the meeting took place is called the America Square Conference Centre. It is literally just up the road from the Cheshire Cheese. A nice sort of, you kind of go down the stairs in this place, and it's kind of, conference room. It's got a nice sort of buffet area. It's just basically just sort of a bunch of meeting rooms, really. And yeah, it was a good event. I mean, everybody was nice. Sean spoke very well. He had a lot of time for people, which was, very, very good. I think
let us ask questions in the presentation. Don't you agree? Like, so often you go to these things and they talk at you. You've heard it all before. Yeah. You've forgotten your question, or there's 13 hands up at once at the very end. And he started off, didn't he, by saying, "Look, it's a dynamic presentation. This is the."
And people took it like that, didn't they? They basically just decided to intervene at various points. There was a guy at the front that asked at least a couple of questions. In fact, there was two people at the front that asked maybe 2 or 3 questions. Yeah. And you know what? Compared to the first one, because I did go to the first one as well. LSE, the staff, they actually gave the floor to the audience, whereas the first one, I felt that they hogged it quite a lot on the sort of microphone. This time it wasn't like that. People could ask what they wanted. I thought Sean was very open and honest with his answers within reason. You can't tell you everything.
He was really good, wasn't he? And I think people asked questions, but they also allowed him to talk a little more off slide. So he'd have the slide as the background. It would start a question, and then he'd flick through 3 slides, and so it was a much more dynamic presentation than I think most people would have been used to at an AGM or something like
100%. That. It was really good.
Quite impressed with that, because to talk free-flowingly about a subject in and out, it shows the caliber of the man.
Yeah, and we ran out of time for the sort of main Q&A. We went to sandwiches, didn't we? But there was more questions, and he had his huddle.
Well, he sort of asked and said we'd like to go to sandwiches, and I was sort of sitting there at the back and having stuck up my hand and asked a couple of questions myself. I was thinking, no, let's stay in here. Just let us next hour.
We don't want sandwiches.
Yeah.
Sandwiches were very. I was very much up for sandwiches, because I had all I had at that point in the day was a Tesco meal deal, and so I needed food. So I was very much like, please.
They were a bit pitiful, weren't they? I think they were gone by the time the last few people were still leaving the room to get to the sandwiches. But same with the wine. I think amazingly I only had 1 glass. At the do, I'd come in hot from a lunch, but
okay.
But I think it was that was harder, because of course you don't want him to feel uncomfortable. There's 40 whatever people in the room. Everyone just arced around him, and the questions started, and obviously everyone's waiting for him to finish the conversation so they can quickly throw their question. And in a funny way, it reminded me of a whole room full of cokeheads all talking over each other, all wanting to tell a story or ask a question. But I think I didn't get very much from that second part. I don't know about you, Magic, but I talked to a few.
I actually wasn't in the circle. I was actually sort of off to the side, mainly because I was in conversation with. Well, a bit of that, but I was in conversation with a couple of other shareholders. And we spoke at good length, and we had, our own discussion. And in the end, I just kind of felt that, by the time I joined the circle, I'm not understand what's going on. So, no, it was fine. From what I hear, though, the feedback from that was pretty good. So.
And actually, I lie. I had 2 glasses of wine because they cleared it, and some lovely Liverpudlian chap walked over with 2 full glasses of red, and you could see me walking to see if there was any more wine, and he went, "Go on, Stuart, take it." And he gave me a glass. So actually, thank you to that chap. They were really nice. People had travelled a long way. There were people from Plymouth and all over the place. That was what I found quite interesting. I thought it's on my doorstep. It was easy to go, but people were from Liverpool, Manchester, Plymouth, all over the country. Had actually come down just to be there and meet the man.
That's awesome. So speaking to Sean, obviously there were questions fired left, right, and centre, and it would have been quite hard to have kept track of all of them. But as we're nearing and this is probably quite an obvious question, but I'm just looking at my notes that I've got here. As we're getting nearer to the rock face, did he say anything about the drilling speeding up, and about exploration pads or anything?
Yeah.
So he did comment on the decline. Didn't tell you how many meters it's progressed, but he basically said, for want of a better phrase, that it's progressing very well. He's in harder ground now, so you're basically getting chunks out, as he's I think as he puts it. So we should, if we get an update from the decline, we should be seeing quite a number of meters.
Yeah, I think he used the same, same stuff around the fact that it's not sort of, what was the word he used, homogeneous, I think, or where it does compact, it does get harder, but he also said they're going through.
It's in the sandstone now, so you're
harder bits and softer bits still, so they're still in.
Yeah, you're in the sandstone now, so you're not chunking. You're basically not going through, unconsolidated material. You're not going through the mudstones. You're going through harder ground.
Yeah.
In what we would call indurated material. So essentially.
And we were expecting tonight's decline progress updates. So that's usually a little closer. So the drill results are probably cut off when, all the way back to the end of March.
Probably. They normally. You're all right. They normally do the.
And then the decline's going to be probably within the last 2 weeks, I'd imagine, to say.
Maybe. Right, I'm not sure, but we'll see.
And this is usually written on the first of the month, isn't it? Signed off first of the month. So that's probably what we'll get for decline progress a few weeks ahead of that already.
Which is cool. Let's talk about the 8,000 per vertical meter. That's come up a few times on there. Did anyone got any comments about the 8,000? I mean, that's the new term to me. I only came across it when they released it.
He obviously, that's a slide he loves to emphasize, because obviously it's such a great number.
And that's his main. I think he said it's the best he's seen in his career.
Yeah, exactly.
Recovery rate in as well as that.
I think the other take home was the fact that he was always forecasting that 8,000 is not just going to be sort of necessarily held within the upper part of the ore body. That 8,000 line, if you like, because if you remember the graph on the chart, it kind of wiggles up to 8,000 and comes back in. But he was was hammering home the point that the only reason really why it's not 8,000 all the way through is because of drilling density.
Yeah.
At depth, there's less drill holes than further up at 600 to 800 meters. So he is basically, he didn't say it's going to be 8,000 all the way through, but what he was saying was at depth, as drilling density increases, that sort of line where it's down, I don't know, 2,000 or something, is probably going to expand.
And obviously that could increase because the grade's increasing at depth as well. So,
And in my head, at least, I mean, I don't think he said this. I think he did touch a little bit on the fact that there is a slight increase in grade in the eastern fracture potentially. I think it's almost going to have, it comes out to 8,000, it comes in a bit, and then it kind of comes out again like that. So you basically have like I don't know how to describe it. Like, you kind of got two hills, a hill, a valley, and another hill. That's kind of how I would describe the line as I expected to kind of progress. But it was, that 8,000 number's massive. It's, there's, who knows, it could end up expanding out a little bit further than that, potentially.
I think what was good, he compared it to, if I'm not mistaken, was it Cali?
Cali, big.
Where he said, that whilst they've got, I think, 10 to 11,000, that's over a 3.5 kilometer strike length. I'm going from my hazy memory.
Yeah, no, you're right. That's
but it was around those. So if you just think about how compact ours is over 600 meters versus 3.5 kilometers.
Yeah, ours is really dense, isn't it? It's it's packed in a small area.
Much easier to mine.
Yeah, a lot easier. Cali, he loves using the phrase "it's a ripper," it's Aussie speak. But Cali is massive. It's one of the best mines Australia have, or where I think it's in Australia.
I just caught up with what you were talking about. Then you were talking about Calgary, weren't you?
Newmont own that one.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong. And that ore body is fantastic. but that's the point, is that he's able to compare our deposit with something like that because it is just that good.
Yeah.
It's packed in, what is it? I think the dimensions are something like 650 meters by 350 by 1100 depth.
Yeah.
Something like that. Very, very small sort of area.
And then what interests me with it...
Yeah, carry on.
No, what interests me with it is when you look at Calgary, it's obviously been going for over 100 years now, isn't it? That whole area, and the way it's grown.
Oh, you're talking about Calgary. Oh, so we're talking about something called Cali, which is I think it's somewhere else in Australia. I don't quite know where.
Yeah,
it's a deposit owned by Newmont.
Yeah, and it was referencing it mostly in relation to that grams per meter.
The two sort of ore deposits I've seen it compared to is that one, and then obviously Hemi, which is up in the Pilbara, I think, owned by De Grey Mining. Now that, from my understanding, is over even longer strike length. I think that's got something like a 10-kilometer strike length. De Grey. Yeah. And of course, that beat Havieron to this prize. I think it was some exploration prize last year.
It was the one we've won that beat us the year before, and then we won it the year.
Oh,
yeah, we basically swapped places.
Yeah.
But I mean, the bottom line is, these are the two best ore finds in Australia in probably the last decade, maybe even longer. And yet the Grey's over 10 kilometers. I mean, so they have a massive area to uncover, whereas ours it's very much in a tighter area, which I think makes it easier to mine. You don't have to get rid of so much ground. The planning, I suspect, is easier. I must admit, I'm not a mine planner. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I would have thought if you've got, a vertical or sub-vertical ore body that is nice and tight in terms of area, that's better than something that's, well, I say it's better, but you get what I mean. It's a bit easier to navigate.
I don't know if you guys watched a video that was posted, I forget who posted it, an illustration video of stoping, but I'd highly recommend.
Probably was banned.
Recommend go and have a watch. It's just all illustrated, but just the paste fill and everything and the way in which they do it and get all the ore out, it was mesmerizing, to be honest. Definitely worth having a watch, because it helps you visualize what our ore body looks like and how we're going to start getting Bams's development ore. Now, Richards.
Now, talk to me about Conveyors. That was something else that came up. Obviously, we're waiting for a second Conveyor to come through.
Body language and the way in which he answered that question was quite interesting, didn't you think?
Yeah. So this was, I would say, he spent close to 10 minutes answering some of this. This is definitely one of the major sort of talking points. So,
and this was a question from Bamps in the audience. So perfect person to ask it, because he knew the gradient, 6.1 degrees or whatever it was. He knew how long it would have to be, 9 odd kilometers. So
he's worked that out.
Just look, you're talking about a hypothetical scenario that hasn't actually been mentioned officially at all in any documents, and here's the CEO in front of 45 people in a room, able to just come straight out and answer that. Not only answer it, discuss the comparisons with Cadia, mention a comment that it would probably be a straight line all the way back to Telfer, and mention his preference for a hoist or a shaft, as they call it in Australia. So, I think someone else mentioned that every time he was asked a question, he was well ahead of it, even though a lot of it was hypothetical stuff well into the future. So again,
that's the best way to describe it. I think you covered it. I think he thinks Newcrest are going to go one route. He has his own ideas about how he thinks it should be done. Either way, this is going to be some system that's going to have to be put in place.
What I found was nice as well is with the rhetoric and the narrative is ramping up around these block caves, and ramping up. My biggest worry with all of this, I understood the starter mine and I understood why we had to go this route. But as far as share price appreciation, what we're all interested in, and hopefully before we're all 10 years older, it's always been about those block caves, and it's always been about getting more than 3 megatons out. Telfer can take so much more. And I've been sitting here going, okay, we've talked about parallel block cave studies and all of this, but you can't just have all these people in a room working on a feasibility study having not thought about any of this other stuff. Is it actually possible? Is it bulk mineable? What are the plans to do it? How are you going to transport it? That stuff's now starting to come out of the woodwork. And not only that, he's talking confidently about them. He's talking about options between conveyor and shop, not whether or not we're going to have one. So for me, that's a big step forward. I got that away from being at the meeting. These things are going along in parallel, and this is just a starter mine. And the 3 megaton, which was a worry for me initially, is purely to fund that 12 to 20 megaton operation that's 3, 4, 5 years away.
That was a very good point. The block cave narrative definitely was talked about, and was definitely talked about in such a fashion that it was almost, it seems unlikely that they wouldn't progress with that once they got the starter mine operation.
Wasn't he saying, two different...
Yeah, he was basically sort of saying there's going to be mines within a mine at Havieron. You're going to be, stoping the southeast crescent. You're going to be block caving the breccia. I think we always kind of was hoping for that. But he was sort of talking about this idea that, you're going to have different mines within a mine. You're going to have the stoping operation. You're going to have the block caving operation in the northern breccia. And you're probably going to have something else going on with the eastern breccia. So you're going to have different mechanisms, different sort of ways of getting that ore out in one mine.
And I think it was, and the governance was showing through. There was ESG, everyone's favorite corporate word at the moment. There was ESG woven into this. He's talking about, how efficient solar is in the use of a conveyor that would go directly to Telfer. Just imagine all those trucks trucking up versus a solar powered conveyor in a straight line. Again, it's impressive stuff. If you're going to think about the future, that's one thing, but they've really gone into detail, which makes me think, PFS is already at an early stage for those block cave ideas virtually.
It's interesting to see what happens when they come out with the FS, and if they actually start to really gather momentum. Now the fraction of the fraction has, it's no longer that fraction of a fraction, is it? It's getting bigger, which is less of a fraction, I guess. So speaking of numbers, finance, did he speak about that? How debt, mortgages, anything like that?
It did, yeah. He spoke a fair amount. Again, I liked his analogy because what he's been doing this entire time is preparing us for what we hope is tonight. And a lot of first I don't know if you guys will follow my thought process, but just bear with me. So first we started with, we've got this 5% and great, that's going to be a free carry to production. That's why GH put it in there. That's why we signed it up. We're not going to have the money. We don't want to have to do a placing. The 5% is going to pay us all the way. Obviously, our expectations have been beaten down, but in a good way, because Averians ended up so much bigger, and we had to draw a line in the sand because we couldn't have endless loans. Our cash call was coming. So we're almost a victim of our own success. That JV term has become a problem. Now when you talked about finance, I've always been thinking, well, hold on, I was expecting us to be all the way there with the 5%. Then you say, okay, we're not going to be all the way there. Let's say we're 70 to 100, we're going to have to bridge the gap with finance. What I got from Sean here, which is right, is he's discounting the 5% in regards to the finance. And I'd never looked at it that way, but of course I should have. The finance is they might not buy it. So why the hell would he be sitting there, banking on it? So that's probably an error I made, but I suspect many PIs have been making along the way when they do the sums in their head going, the 5% is going to pay for X. He came at it from what I think was the right way, obviously, was to say, no, I've been going to banks to get 123 million. That's what we need. And he said, amazingly, they'll be willing to give term sheets of a PFS, which is almost unheard of. It's normally the bankable feasibility, the next one you can do that on. But also he gave the nice analogy that it's like a mortgage. Gone are the days, even though he said we possibly could get 100% of the money from the banks, that's not usually how it works. You usually take a 95% loan. So what was quite interesting there was, he was intimating they were so interested that they'd take up to, right up to that very high loan to value ratio, but that he almost wanted our own cash, and that's where placing potentially was talked about or could come in, is having our own cash, having a 95% mortgage, for want of a better word, from a conglomerate of 3 or 4 different banks. And then the 5% really is your cash runaway, 50 to 70 million for the next 2 years. So because he had an analogy. He had an analogy where if Newcrest were down there and they found an interesting spot and they said, hey, we want to throw down, rigs down here, Sean's comment was, well, we want to be able to say to them, no, let's throw 12. So I think that's, again, we got to start thinking like Sean's thinking, 2 or 3 years ahead. Now think of the cash runaway at, what is it, Magic, $150,000 Australian dollars a hole. So what, $100,000 a hole. We've got, okay, jury's paid for, some of, is it Rudol is paid for with the grant, which is literally one diamond hole at 200 grand. We obviously Havarian, we're spending like mad. I mean, Havarian, they've spent, I reckon, at least 30 million of the 50 million loan already, I'd assume. But there's been hundreds of millions spent there already. We're going to need cash. So I'm looking at the finance from a totally different point of view. I don't know if you are, Magic, but I liked, it was the first time I've taken a step back and gone, well, of course he's going to the banks asking for the whole amount, because the 5% may not come. And so now I'm thinking, well, hold on, if we get that whole amount plus cash or a small placing, we could have 50 to 70 million cash. And that's where acquisitions come in. That's where aggressive drilling, Ernest Giles comes in. That's a very, very different company. Yes, you've got this debt, but you've got a 3-year payback.
Yeah, I think you've covered it pretty well. I mean, it seems like the banks are definitely is the method that Sean is going down. He definitely wants to use the banks to finance pretty much the whole lot. So, basically you're less dependent on the 5%, and that 5% when it does come, essentially, I've always felt if you can make the 5% essentially pay for your exploration work, that's a lot of money. For exploration, where you basically do not need to self-finance probably for at least 2 years in that regard. But no, I think you kind of, I don't really have a lot to add, because I think you've summed it up perfectly there. The 5% is one piece of the puzzle, but I think if he can get the banks on board, certainly from the feasibility study coming at the end of the year, that's really the key document I think that the banks are waiting for. The fact is, he's already tapped them up. It's a bit, I'm going to use an analogy here. How many times you see now football teams sign players before the window's done, but then the window comes around and then they're announced. This is somewhat what I think he's done. I think he's approaching banks.
Yeah.
And then suddenly the feasibility study comes out. Bosh, on the desk it goes to, whoever, Goldman Sachs, whoever he's speaking to. Yeah. And they go, right, we're just going to have a little read, do our due diligence, and they come back within a month or so and they say, look, we love
what was interesting as well is he's not talking to, I don't know, some fancy merchant bank in the Cayman Islands.
He said it's banks that we would have deposits with.
Yeah,
that's basically what he said, didn't he?
Yeah, so it's going to be sort of household names, and then he was measured in the sense that he said, as always, these things are, you can have 3 out of the 4 banks ready to go, and if the 4th one doesn't go, the deal doesn't go through. So,
but the man is, if there's one part of his CV that I feel like, when we were doing our homework on this new guy coming in, everything that was coming out was he's finance guy. He's done this for Northside. He was always about, he was very much the guy who can communicate with bankers, financial people, economists, that sort of guy. So this is his area of expertise, and I feel like we're in very safe, certainly in safer hands with him in this regard than I think if we had.
Oh God, it's previous with GH.
GH done what he done very well. And even Callum's a geologist. Callum was a geologist. He is a pure. These guys. They don't have the same skills that Sean has. And in reverse, Sean would never have been able to find Havieron. That was not his bag. But we're now further along the food chain, so you need guys like Sean to be basically driving the ship
And I think in that regard, how encouraging was that Sprott note? I mean, I'm a massive follower of Rick Rule. He's probably my favorite out of all of the talking heads. I think he's a super wise.
He's definitely the one who, I don't know, like he doesn't. Rick Rule is somebody who I feel like he has a much bigger understanding of the whole system of mining than a lot of the other guys, in my opinion. And he certainly puts his money where his mouth is.
He does. And I think Sprott in general has that same, the same ethos as Rick Rule, even though he's not involved with Sprott anymore. And I think for them to come outside, he's always said, management first and then asset. And I'm going, no, man, surely it's asset first and then management. But, these guys know what they're talking about. I think that's a global mining house to come out and say what they said about Sean. We haven't just got some guy who got a lucky break with talking his way into the job. He's really going to attract big talents, big people around the world knowing. So, we're mid-cap ready. I was big. I got exactly what I wanted from the meeting, which was to see the whites of the man's eyes and to see if he impressed me, and he really did.
Go on.
I was just going to say, when I spoke to him, just like this, through the internet, I came away feeling exactly the same way you've just described, Stu. You just can't help but feel that Sean Day is completely in control of our destiny with his share. He knows what he's doing. He knows where he's going, and we just have to let it play out.
I think the only reason he's not invested more is only because he is not. I don't think he's allowed to.
Nope.
No,
he's not allowed to buy shares right now because of the 5%
he's in a closed
thing.
period, it has been since that 5% began.
So I do believe that he would have a bigger holding if it wasn't for that.
For sure. I mean, I said to him, I don't know if this actually got broadcast or not, but he's damned if he does and damned if he doesn't, because he wants to buy now when the share price is really low to obviously make as much money as he can, because that's what we do. But actually, when he does his job properly and the share price goes up, and he'll probably be able to buy, it's almost a victim of his own success.
He's eating into his own personal profits. Obviously,
it is a bit like that, and you're damned as well, because when you do buy, you're always going to find people criticizing the amount. What do you mean it's only 25 grand, or what do you mean it's only 50 grand? As if everyone understands his personal finances well enough to know how much he could afford at this stage.
No, correct.
You're right. It's easy. But I do think that's something that's in the near term. Again, he did kind of confirm that when asked around the buying shares. I think it was Donald who rather uncomfortably asked the question. And he basically said, yes, I see the value, didn't he? I think that's what his words.
Yeah, he can't say much more.
Basically, when I'm not in a closed period, I will be buying more shares. So there's certainly a vote of confidence there. We don't need to. That's something we've got to look forward to in the near term, and a direct to buy, which is always good for it.
And not just one direct to buy either. I think you'll find a few directors who have not maybe. I mean, is it Chris Toon? I think he's on the.
The guys that we don't really see.
Any
of the people in that basically.
For balance, there is one elephant in the room for me, which could be solved with a simple email to GGP, which I should probably do. But what's going on with our chief geologist? Do we have one?
So I understand that.
I didn't want to embarrass Sean, but the slides were wrong, so they still had John McIntyre.
So we have
looking at
an exploration manager. No. So we have an exploration manager, and then I don't know if that title now has been merged with chief geologist or whatever. Who knows? They could. I would imagine they're pretty close if they are recruiting somebody. That process has probably been on for a while. I actually don't know the circumstances under which the chief geologist left.
It's just a bit of a mystery to me, that it's obviously things like his name still being up on the slides, when he's obviously left the company and already working somewhere else it's a bit of a faux pas. I'm sitting there. I
don't think they. I would imagine that.
Quickly, he hasn't. He has left quickly. Only stayed 9 months.
Well, I mean, he's now chief geologist at Solstice Minerals because I've checked his LinkedIn.
So
that must have been. I think.
Why would you leave for a geologist? I mean,
he must have had a pay increase somewhere. I don't know what the circumstances are, but I mean, ultimately, he's joined that new company and.
Or maybe it was
know.
tail wagging the dog, or the other way around, and he got out in this FIFA contract into nowhere and did 9 months and thought, geez, I don't want to do this. I want to go back to my family. So
maybe it was more to do with the PFS or the MRE that we relaunched, and his job was to get the 5% sorted,
get it over the line, and
get it over the line. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, it's just
who knows? I mean, they're never going to tell us either. It's not something that they'll disclose. I mean, I would like to think, because looking, because I've seen an interview from this guy. I think last year at some point. The guy doesn't seem like he's, I mean, obviously, you can't necessarily judge an interview. The guy doesn't seem like he would have left in bad taste.
Mm-hmm.
I can't see why he would. Sean Day does not seem like a boss who would be really, really difficult to work under. But no, I don't know. They might. I know whenever you look at these things, you think. I tend to always. I feel like as humans, we always kind of look at.
You've got to consider them in your broad thesis, but I've chalked it down to the most likely is going to be the location. It's going to be an in-hospital location for a young geologist.
I think he probably. I mean, this guy has worked for Great and Gold for a number of years. Well, I think he's been in there for a little while, either as the chief geologist or something else. He may have just fancied a new challenge. I mean, Solstice Minerals, I don't know what they've got. He's basically heading up their program now. He may just want, I've come to realize, I haven't met a few of them, exploration geologists, they love adventure. They love being the ones who find something.
That's what they want.
And so, and they live and breathe for it. So it might be that he's just gone, you know what, my time with Havieron's done. I'd rather go for someone else and find something with them. That could be genuinely the reason, but who knows?
Taking with him all the knowledge that he now knows. Now, very, very, very quickly, Stuart Hines is with us this evening. Good evening, Stuart. And he says that Damien Stepson is our geo manager. And obviously,
Damien Stevens, yes.
He was live today at a conference.
And I watched it.
But did you? I didn't get it.
There should be a live link.
Give us
a live link.
If he's agreed permission to share that presentation, that will be live on this. I think they're the Australian. I can't remember what their institute. They're basically a geology society in Western Australia, but they have a YouTube channel, and it will be up. I will warn you, it's very technical in places.
Well, it was going to be.
And I have to be. I was very happy about this because he is basically built. He is built upon the presentation that was given at a conference last year by Newcrest in November. He has added information to this. And it's quite clear. He's only worked on the Havieron deposit now for about 2 months.
Right.
So a lot of what he's talking about is not really his, and he's very open. He says that. But he knows it. He's clearly done his homework. He clearly understands what's obviously with what he's seen. He's been to visit the core a number of times, he said, and blah, blah, blah. A very good talk. I've got a bunch of notes here, actually, from the talk. I couldn't write it down in time, so I didn't get everything down. But it was good, and certainly from a story perspective, in terms of like, how did this deposit get here? When did the gold come in? When did the copper come in? There, he actually provided some information on that. And then later in the talk, he talks a lot about geophysical methods, what's worked, what hasn't worked, and essentially trying to basically give the audience, because he's talking to, I think everybody in the audience in that room was a geoscientist of some description, whether they're a geologist, a geophysicist, or something in between. So he was trying to give them information about, essentially, he was trying to say, like, how would we explore for another one? How do we do it? Because basically, a lot of geophysics just doesn't work in that part of Australia because the cover's so thick.
Yeah.
Because, essentially, if you haven't got... like, normally, if you want, like, a really, really nice magnetic anomaly, you need something like magnetite there. And he was going over the history, and Newcrest done this modelling. They did have a mag anomaly, but it was small. It was like 1/10 the size of Olympic Dam, because they were going down this whole IOCG type deposit model. And obviously, they didn't know that it was going to be intrusion related. Everything was telling them it was IOCG, so they were going down that model. They were like, well, why is this mag anomaly so small? But it was because it's pyrrhotite and not magnetite that's down there. And so it's very challenging. And also the other thing as well is the geochemistry. What you normally use in your soil samples, your water samples, drill samples, all of that. Basically, everyone's got a very quite a tight geochemical signature. So you need to be basically spacing your samples, I think, along the lines of 200 meters apart to essentially get the required signature. And that costs a lot of money because 200 meters is not very far, like really, to start getting samples. You need a lot of drilling to do that. Or if you're doing soil samples or just outcrop if it's there, that's quite a lot of material. So, but the geochemical signature is exactly what you'd expect for intrusion-related gold, and it's also the same elements we've seen at Scallywag. So he said basically you've got gold, which is nearest the centre, and it kind of goes out to copper. Then it goes into bismuth, tellurium, and then tungsten. They're the key elements. So basically sampling your material, you've got anomalous amounts of those elements. You could be you're basically within the vicinity of potentially an ore system. But Havieron, it's not like kilometers wide, this geochemical signature. It's quite tight. But in my opinion, that can be quite useful, because if these type of ore systems are quite tight, and you start finding anomalous amounts, that's quite a good thing, because what you don't want, if you've got these ore systems where, I studied one of these ore systems where the geochemical footprint, anomalous potassium, which just kilometers, you haven't got a clue where to go. Or at least here, if you've got like nice amounts of bismuth, tellurium, stuff like that, you know that it's not going to be necessarily kilometers and kilometers wide. You might be within a kilometer, or maybe within a few hundreds of meters of potentially something. So that's I think that can be a good thing, but the key is obviously you've got to be in the right spot to begin with, and that's the challenge, because that's where your geophysics comes in. So you need very good quality, basically magnetics and gravity. That's the two key ones.
Did he speak about those mobile metal ions, or because
he didn't speak about that? He spoke about so apparently they're going to be trying with Newcrest some passive magnetics, which hasn't been done before. They're going to see if that works. They talked about EM, so electromagnetics. They said it's shit. Basically, it don't work.
No,
the reason is because the Permian is conductive.
Right.
So it distorts any signal that you get at depth. It will just disappear because you're just picking up constantly what's in the Permian. So it's a very challenging environment to explore in, is kind of what he was getting at. There's a lot of detail in that presentation. If they do put it out, do watch it.
Yeah.
There's two main slides, I would say, that are basically like, I'll be honest, unless you're a geologist, you ain't got a clue. You will not have a chance. It's because it talks about basically the stages of the ore deposit, and it relates it, and then it goes into what he basically explains. I'll try and break this down in layman's terms. So basically, the crescent zone. There are three. So he's defined 3 stages to have that. Okay, so stage 1 is gold, stage 2 is sulfide, and stage 3 is pyrite. So the gold basically comes in first. Then you overprint basically the gold-bearing material with the essentially massive sulfide, and then the last stage is this late-stage pyrite, which apparently is most related to the dike, and it's also potentially introducing some very minor quantities of there's basically lead zinc sulfides, so things like galena is what you mentioned. Probably not economic at all, but basically it's there with the pyrite. Probably because it's coming in with these, I would say, lower temperature fluids that are, and that basically they aren't carrying any more gold or copper.
So still no mention of nickel.
Well, we'll get to that. Because he said, I'll quote, he said there's an extra story with nickel that he's not allowed to talk about.
Oh, you heard that here first.
So this is not me saying this. Is if this presentation, which it looks like it probably will. It sounds to me like they are going to publish it, because I haven't heard anything else otherwise. You'll hear that. basically, then it goes into another slide which divides the.
I'm hoping that's just because of that.
So I think from what he presented, he never said it because he kind of said that and then basically said nothing else. But it says on the slide where the nickel is, and it's basically in stage 1 and stage 2. I would say it's mostly in stage 2, from what he kind of presented. Then what happens? He goes into another slide, and it basically he is subdivided the crescent zone into 4 different domains. And he's given them these acronyms, and essentially all you need to know is it's different proportions of pyrrhotite, chalcopyrite, and quartz/carbonate. So basically, it's you. I feel like you'd only do this if you have a plan to mine this material. You need to, because obviously you start big, you kind of narrow in. Right, so you get down to the mine scale. Your mapping is done at a 1 to 5,000 scale, possibly even less. So the fact that they're now defining these domains, when they go and mine this, they're going to want to know what's the best material and where is it. So these domains do that. There's one particular domain that is
5% not even been launched, and he's
basically one of these domains. They say in the presentation on the slides. This is like the highest gold grade. So they're clearly they know what material they're going to essentially be. They want to get out first, and then they're going to go for these other domains in the present zone. They've already making the plan essentially. Well, this is the material we want first, and then we'll sample this extra stuff. That's basically that was probably the 2 most detailed slides. Like I said, I feel like the nickel is related to stage 2. I think it's in. Well, it's not just me who thinks this. I think this is in. It's a few of us think this. It's in the Eastern Breccia. One extra line that I think adds weight to this is that he talks about these diorite sills. Now, you would have seen on previous diagrams, probably earlier this year, in fact, they added that lithology into the diagram. It says diorite. And we were like, well, where's that coming in? And we wasn't sure whether it was a sill, a dike, whatever. Well, he said sill, so these are these horizontal, igneous intrusions. And he initially said direct sill, but he sort of corrected himself, said that there's probably several of them. And they're at the core of the breccia system. Now, I think that is kind of the key as to why we have potentially got nickel, because for nickel to be there, nickel is not going to be in these carbonate rocks. It's not going to be in these sandstones. Normally nickel is present in essentially igneous rocks, specifically more basaltic type igneous rocks. So these diorites, which he later says probably derived from the mantle, well, they'd be perfect candidates for a source of nickel. And he also said that they think they're pre-mineralization. So this is the perfect, basically, source rock to destroy, for want of a better phrase, with these fluid events that come in, that actually cause the mineralization. And obviously those fluids, if they're eating away at things like diorite, they're going to take out nickel from that rock. So I think they're at depth. I think they're where the Eastern Breccia is, and I think that is basically why you're getting nickel there and probably not further up where the carbonates are. That's just my theory.
So
I have no idea. But,
no, of course. But I mean, this is the thing, isn't it? And this is why there's like 3 different mining fronts. Is the fact of the matter is the Eastern Breccia. I don't even know if the nickel's economic. I haven't got a clue. No. They never say it is or not. But the fact that they're talking about there's an extra story, blah blah blah. It must be of interest. Yeah. It has to be.
Definitely.
I would encourage people to go, if it gets uploaded, watch it. Do your best to understand it. If there's questions, I'm sure either me or someone else can answer them. But
okay.
Yeah.
No, that's grand magic. Thank you so much, because I'd have probably tried to watch that and just got.
Yeah, I got lucky. It was at 11. It was at 11 o'clock UK time. Yeah. That's why I was able to watch it.
Yeah. No, that's cool. Right. First question that someone said, "What are you eating?" It looks like popcorn.
It is popcorn, correct? Tesco.
Oh, look at that. There you go.
Tesco.
Salted popcorn.
Tesco's
There we go.
Salted, not sweet.
The boys want to know what you drink, and girls. There's girls there too. Boys and girls would like to know, Stuart. Oh, look, Cherryade. Stuart, what are you drinking?
I'm drinking. So it's a Pauliac. So it's a Bordeaux, and I'm drinking it because we had a very lucky experience of being upgraded to first class on our flights back from South Africa in March due to British Airways messing things up, and we flew back on Air France. And Air France, I had the best bottle of wine I've ever had in my entire life. Well, not just bottle. It was first class. It was incredible. You know, our whole own cabin. We had a whole wine tasting, a cheese tasting. It knocked the pants off British Airways, and this was the wine. So I've been looking for it for ages. And I've just found it. It's not cheap. It's $45 a bottle. And that's the wholesale price. But yes, I thought tonight's is a good enough occasion.
I've also got chocolate raisins.
Oh man, you came. You knew this was going to be a long show. Now, as the hour ticks over, and obviously now we're into it, we are within the next 45 minutes. I would suggest maybe even an hour, because they have been making them later. Yes, other brands are available. So good evening. If you just joined us, please don't forget to hit the like button. That really helps.
You don't want Metcalfe's popcorn.
No, definitely not. Although
97 calories, it don't taste good.
And I forgot what I was going to say now. And subscribe, please subscribe. I know it doesn't mean much, but I believe Google are now showing you adverts because this is a bit of a popular channel with 800 subscribers. I don't see a penny of it until I'm over 1,000. So if Google are insisting on making you watch adverts, I'd appreciate making it to 1,000 subs, and then I can not only brag to my teenage daughter that I've got 1,000 subs. And
just
cool.
create fake accounts and subscribe.
Just did that. Now, gentlemen, there is obviously, Stuart, you've just opened the bottle of wine. Something else that's very much on the tip of people's tongues. And that is, Magic, is that a rocket over your right shoulder?
A rocket?
No, it's cleaning product by the looks of things.
Oh, this?
Is that WD-40?
Oh, God. No, right. This. So I bought this is embarrassing because I bought this probably 2 years ago. I sprayed it once. It's a sea salt spray.
Oh.
For your hair. And then this.
He's pouring it out.
Shoe protector.
Oh, super.
Instant
There you
protection.
go. Boy, Mace. We ask all the important questions.
Stuff. And some after sun. Very relevant for these conditions.
Stuart, your wine is pronounced Pauliac. Just thought I'd let you know that one. So I would like to talk about the possibility of what tomorrow could bring for us. Obviously, we're expecting an RNS tonight, which means we're then expecting an RS tomorrow morning from Greatland Gold. But the managing director has put himself forward for a chat tomorrow at 3:30. So, what are your takes on what could be coming for us in the next hour?
Right. Well, I suppose if you're taking bets, you know, if we had, you know, Bet365 are giving odds to what this could be, they're probably going to be giving quite short odds on something like 5%. I would imagine that's probably, you know, if you used to take a survey, a poll in the audience as to what it could be, I imagine that's probably a common answer. The other thing I think there's a chance it could be, so at the meeting he talked a lot, but he actually talked quite a bit about this idea that, you know, he wants Greatland Gold to be accretive as well. So he was talking about this, you know, how he was basically in discussions, and he said one of them was quite advanced or something with, you know, essentially another mining company about their land. So there's the potential that we're going to enter into some sort of JV with somebody else on some type project.
Yes.
So that is another possibility. Obviously, there's just the possibility that he's going to talk about the drilling results. That'd be, in my opinion, that sounds crazy, but it'd be boring. I don't know why he would do that. when we've just had a shareholder meeting.
No, it's just it's too remote a possibility. There's some form of additional information tomorrow at a minute.
And then the Leicester scenario, the 1 to 5,000, is Newcastle have bought us out of great regards of everyone.
That's definitely not what's
happening. That is the 1 in 5,000 Leicester shot.
Yeah, let's probably don't see any suspension notice on the ASA.
No, I don't think so.
Del Norte got that sent us all into a flat spin. I really thought that was the moment way back then.
Okay, that's cool. I've got some other scenarios for you to run through that I've asked some fairly knowledgeable people this evening.
Go on then.
Obviously 5%. Actually, if this was family fortunes, right? We asked 100 people in our survey.
Oh yeah.
In at number 1 was the 5%. Number 2, a new JV, so you've ticked that box. Number 3, you're doing well here, gents. A takeover bid. Number 4, this one you never mentioned, right?
New board of directors.
Number 4 was rubbing our noses that an Aussie won the Open, right? You never mentioned that one, but apparently that's big news this week. Financing, which I think we've covered already in our notes. The Tassie tenements have been sorted. They're now under.
Okay, that's a good one. That's a good one. Didn't think of that.
I didn't get that impression. Did you, Magic? I thought that he was that was.
I think that's a ways away. I don't think that's close.
I got the impression that that's always going to be. It's still holding pattern. I got the impression if you asked him that 365 days ago versus when we did now, the answer was exactly the same. So
I think those Tassie assets. Don't get me wrong. He wants to divest them. I just don't think it's a priority at all.
In the next market, we'd probably spin them out. Somewhere.
It's a good suggestion, though. Whoever put that, so
absolutely new tenements, which is interesting because actually we've got some new tenements coming online.
We do.
6134, I think it is, which sits above Black Hills. That's actually been assigned to us. I think we won that ballot, and it's now under the native title unit. I found this morning until November. So, but you should consider the fact that the WDLAC.
What? Oh, here's one. Here's one I forgot on that topic. Although I don't think it will be this. The Ernest Giles native agreement.
That would be good. I've not actually.
I'd love that.
I've been struggling to find the Warden's Court for that, so it's possible that we've been to court and that's come through. I mean, that would be amazing.
Jamie, you were with me last week. Unless he's a very good actor, that's also a ways away because he said we were expecting those.
I agree with you.
He corrected himself and said, "Look, it's going to be next year."
It's going to be next year.
They're not going to get any drills sorted, are they? There's no drills.
I mean, we will talk about Ernest Giles at some point tonight. We'll get into that. Obviously, we got the news coming very soon.
I wonder if he sidestepped my question on DSG with Ernest Giles, or if he genuinely didn't hear me the first time. But, it sounds like Newmont gave us stuff all, basically. Signed an NDA, worked for 9 months, and gave us none of the data. Kind of sounds
pricks.
Brutal. Changes to the board. Obviously, I believe he's intimated that he's over here looking for an executive. Am I right in saying that? But no position.
Again, this is a good suggestion. I think this is possible.
Okay.
I'm hoping it's that and something else. To be honest, I think if it was just that, I'd be a bit.
You go to a webinar where people bring on new directors or executive board members all the time. You do a quick RNS. It's
normally an RNS, but you don't normally talk about it.
It's equivalent to a TR1. It's okay. Someone's board director by. You don't hold a conference. You don't hold a conference to talk about it.
Just for shits and giggles and nothing more, let's have someone from you both. Let's choose someone. Who would you like to see on our board? Doesn't matter who it is. Could be anybody. Anyone. Who would you like to see on our board?
Elon Musk.
Rick Rule.
Elon Musk.
No,
he turned us into the next SpaceX.
Do you think? I mean, that's a possibility. If we've got enough of the good stuff, if we've got enough copper, maybe we've been built out.
Yeah, we're turning. We binned off Australia and we're going asteroid mining.
I mean, that's the thing, isn't it?
Spaceland gold is what we're going to be called.
When you look at bringing in someone with a name, I'm going to guess that you bring somebody in. The producer just said Bill Beaumont.
Wow. Do you know what? I think that's probably the most likely. You know, it's very, very clear that Sprott and Sean, well, he's got a group, doesn't he? And this, like any industry, it's incestuous. These people follow each other. Certainly, if it's high successful people, they follow each other from success to success. Bill Beaumont's recently available, if I'm not mistaken.
Wait, am I being stupid again? I thought Bill Beaumont was the cricketer on A Question of Sport.
No, his ex-boss from Northern Star.
Oh, that's twice tonight.
I just quickly, I don't follow golf religiously. Who is the Aussie who won the Open? Because I thought McIlroy was winning it.
No, he was right up to the end, and then this guy bashed in 7 birdies. He's 7 under par, 5 birdies in a row.
That's mad. Is
Cameron Smith,
I'm trying to think who's an Aussie.
Cameron
I don't know any.
He's got a mullet and a moustache. You can't.
Cameron Smith, you say?
Yeah, you can't really miss him. He's
okay, he's quite iconic.
Yeah,
he must be a new. He must be quite a young un because.
Yeah, he's young. I think he hasn't played too many Opens, but he has been the form player. I've watched. He was in the last Open or whatever it was. He was right.
Fair enough.
You'll be both pleased to know I'm getting currently slated in the chat and by the producer. Apparently, it's not Beaumont, it's Beaumont. And Bill Beaumont was a rugby player.
Oh, okay. So you got it wrong on every single front.
Every single front, I got completely wrong.
My pronunciation was always going to be wrong, so at least I got to copy you verbatim.
Yeah, you thought you were mining the Southeast Crescent, but instead you were mining Scallywag.
But, you know,
not to say Scallywag's bad, okay? I'm just saying it's not bad. It's not
something
bad.
like a big hit like that. You know, don't forget, it's almost like having a foreign government official in an African country. You know, those relationships you build up, with that network, you have to have someone on your board to even open the door to have discussions with people about all of the M&A, all of the growth, all of the different things we want to do over the next 5 or 10 years. So I never really used to understand why you pay these people the big money, but it is literally just that they are able to open the doors, get the deals over the line. Building.
So could you be looking at someone that's coming from a FTSE 250 company?
Maybe. I don't know who. I don't know any names.
No idea.
It could be Tom, Dick, or Harry.
Yeah,
I wouldn't know.
It depends what the role is. Is it just an executive director? Is it what? It depends what the what the role is.
What they're looking for, isn't it? And what they need. Okay, cool.
I always wonder a little bit why there's Sean has made the distinction between CEO and managing director. I see them both as the same thing in my mind, but it is possible to have a CEO and then a managing director. So I suppose it's possible that there could be an incoming CEO, someone like his ex-CEO.
Maybe. I get the sense though he would want to head. He wants to head. This shit,
Me too. He's certainly not about to pass over the reins to someone. Yeah. But just discussing.
This is his dynasty, isn't it? Now, number 9, we've also covered.
Started his own mining company as well, which maybe then plays into the acquisition. Maybe that's the target of a JV or a potential M&A.
Why not?
In this case, we get him and his company.
Yeah, I mean that'd be pretty a clever way of doing it. And if it's an Australian public company, there's your route into ASX as well. Just saying.
Someone's just said Nick Murphy will be out of a job at the end of the year. You can have him. No, thank you. And also, Magic Sean wasn't. He didn't want to be drawn on any comparison between Solg. Did he?
Oh yeah, Soul Gold. Yeah.
I asked him a question about the sort of drill spacing, but what I liked about it was, again, that's been a bugbear of mine. Why are you able to have someone get JORC compliant on 100 and 200 meter drill spacing when we're 25 and 50? So again, I was trying to understand that, and again, he answered it with aplomb. It was brilliant. He described basically that JORC doesn't have a line that says for you to move from inferred to indicated you need X drill spacing, which is what I naively thought. I thought there was going to be a table somewhere that says once you get down to 25 by 25, that's when you can move things through the categories, and actually it's dependent on your ore body, which makes sense. you have a code designed for the the changeability of no one of these things are unique, are they? I mean the same.
I don't know too. I remember. Do you know what? I remember looking at Soul Gold ages ago. I don't know too much. I know they got a decent deposit. It's just I don't know how good they're. You said it's about
jurisdiction. They got 27 million ounces of copper. It's massive, but it's in
Ecuador.
Yeah, it's Ecuador.
But then it's not just that. From what I understand, and I could be completely wrong on this. I have no idea because I don't know. I don't own shares in them. I don't know much about them. But I remember you made a comment earlier. It's about management more than it is the asset. I get the impression that that's very true for Soul Gold because.
Let's talk about that for a minute because it is a very good point because I was involved there. Soul Gold was the very first share that I Googled when I said, how do you get rich in investing? And what's the highest risk possibility? It was biotech and gold exploration, and Soul was the one that came up as the example for gold exploration because they'd gone from 1 pence to 20 pence on AIM. So they were my case study originally. And so I've known them all the way back since 2016. Yeah. And I've watched this Nick Mather guy, and I used to be invested, came in and out, and you're right, they took forever to get a PFS and they kept putting the dates back and the share just kept getting worse and worse and worse, and they've never actually done anything. They've defined a lot of resource. They keep finding stuff. There's satellite resources everywhere.
Yeah, they're kind of dancing around it.
When I first read through them, that's why I bought. I read through the drill results. I was like, my God, there's 2% copper, 3% copper in places. They're incredible, but no one knows if it's ever going to get mined, and it's very remote. So you're still 5-10 years away from seeing any first production.
Yeah, this is what I get the impression of. This is just from memory when I did look at them. And from what I see, even on Twitter and people complaining. I know there's always people complaining about every share, but I get the impression that it'll be somebody else who ends up getting that.
I get the impression as well. And look, what different is you've had the big boys take shares. So you've got Newcrest own 10%, BHP own majority 35%, I think, stake. So but again, everyone's recognized the quality. There's a perfect example of the wrong jurisdiction, and you're right. I think that they're almost going to get squeezed out finance-wise. Fruta del Norte.
Well, what you don't want either is something like what's happened in the past with some nations where a new government comes in and says, you know what, we're sick of international companies taking our metal, we're going to nationalize it, because that happens.
It happens.
It's happened many a time in the past.
And it even happens once the mines have been up and running for 5 or 10 years already.
It's happened in Zambia. It's happened, I think, in Chile and Brazil.
Yeah, it happens
in the past.
You're sitting there and everything's going.
Mexico as well. I think Mexico right now have quite a left-wing government, and they've been trying to, clamp down on the mining profession. I think
it's always toying with the idea, and I'm half surprised they haven't done it. The alternative is take big loans from the Chinese and give it away early on.
Yeah, but I don't know.
Most of Africa's done, but yeah.
I think the key is though, you really have to assess the capability of the team, the board. One thing Sean's done a very good job of, certainly in the last 6 months, he's recruited a lot of people. He's built it. He is building he's built and is continuing to build a team.
Yeah,
so he invests in people, and that's a very important thing.
But it's good to look at those examples against our backdrop because most of us know this is a long-term investment, but actually there's long-term within long-term. I would have said long-term was 3 to 7 years and that was real long-term. But now having been invested for virtually 7 years, you realize that actually I now know that a normal mining company would take 10 to 20 years. So actually we're unique in that sense as well. We're going to actually probably, some of us, get to be in from the first drill hole right the way through to production, which most investors, I doubt, ever get to experience in their lives because it's usually 20 years and nobody holds for a 20-year period. Whereas here, someone can hold for a 7 or 8 year period and go through that whole curve, both of the curves, hopefully.
Mm-hmm.
And I've just broken it.
You've frozen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see
my phone was dying, so I plugged it in and my computer's gone, excuse me.
Don't worry, we'll carry you, Butter. We'll carry you.
Yeah, let's just see if... I think you two are still streaming, so...
Yeah, we're here.
I might kill the chat.
I'm smoking a e-cigarette for someone who wants to know in the chat. Unfortunately, I quit smoking the real stuff a while back, and I'm massively addicted to the other things that British American tobacco sell.
At least it smells better.
Yeah, mine's a strawberry one. It's pretty inoffensive, and if you hold it in, nothing really comes out your mouth. So, which is half the problem because you can sort of do it in public. Because I'm not one of those guys who throws a big cloud.
Well, people do them in their rooms in my building, and it causes fire alarm to go off.
Yeah. Well, I have to admit, I've done it once on a train toilet, on a long train through to Birmingham, thinking that it would only pick up smoke, and they did stop the train, and I was very apologetic, and yeah.
Oh, naughty boy!
Learned my lesson that jumping in there quickly wasn't the right idea.
So, the last thing on our list, our top 10, because believe it or not, we're still playing Family Fortunes. Segue there. Yeah. Cobalt. Bet you can't believe who said that.
Oh, Cobalt. I wonder who that's.
Yeah. I suggest the parrot might have moved into... Well,
interestingly, again,
the
in the presentation, when it comes out, you'll see on the slides, they do put Cobalt on the slide. Again, it's not mentioned in the economic. I just think it's there because there's an element.
It disappeared very quickly, didn't it? Originally, back in the early
I don't think Cobalt is there in economic quantity. I think it is there in anomalous quantity, but I don't think it's there in an economic quantity. Because I'll be honest, it never normally is.
Yeah. No, that's the thing, isn't it? So the RNSs are now flying thick and fast. I believe Antipa have just popped out an RNS, which I think is their second one this week. I think I've already seen it.
Okay, I didn't know that.
No, do you know what, actually? It was a new presentation.
Oh, okay.
New presentation this week with some new pictures. Obviously, they bigged up HAD 5 and played that neurology, as they do.
I mean, Antipa, to their credit, at least have actually got some...
They have got something, haven't they? Yeah, that Mignori dome looks like it could be a one.
Yeah, I think as much as it's probably more technically challenging to mine than what Avion will be, but I don't think they're nailed
on for a commercial discovery yet.
Not yet, but they are on the right tracks for sure. I'd certainly rather be in them than the other sort of juniors that are around at the moment, mainly because they haven't got anything yet. But I suppose that's the risk that you take. Would you go for something? It just depends what part of the change you want to play. If you like throwing money at something which is basically got nothing but could get something, by all means. But that's the roll of the dice situation. I've always felt that it's better to put something into someone that's actually got some drill results personally, but that's how I choose.
For me, I don't really want any. My worst out of the list you've just mentioned there, Liam, is the new land, new tenements.
Oh yeah, the new tenements.
I'm not saying we don't need them, because I think it's valuable mentioning the Velman Code, which we may have just got the benefit or the non-benefit of. But new tenements can be much more than actually the amount you paid for them in the event of a change of a control event, such as a takeover or what have you. So I don't mind us applying for them like we already know we have, but that shouldn't form part of much of our strategy. We've got enough to play for the next 5-10 years. If you've got a new tenement now and it wasn't any better than the other ones we've got, you're probably 5-6 years away if you found something from even beginning to think about doing something commercially with it. So they're not of much interest to me, other than fattening us up for a takeover, which if that happened in 2 or 3 or 4 years, fine, then have a nice big land package of highly prospective tenements that you haven't drilled yet. But I wouldn't want us spending much money outside of our portfolio at the moment.
No, but I mean, the way I see this working, and I could be completely wrong as always, is that what we've got is the next Calgary. There are going to be people digging up for at least the next 100 years. They're going to be finding all
What's
the time.
The mining license that Newcrest got in the next 25 years
25
on top of what they already have?
Very possibly.
Yeah.
What, with that 60 kilometre
60 square kilometers, yeah.
That's what I mean.
The 60-kilometer ring.
That's a lifetime. That's a generation.
It is,
really.
it is. And that's what
So-
again, you can talk about jurisdiction, all these other things, but don't forget, we're not in a rainforest with a bunch of protected creatures here. There's no major environmentalists screaming at us, and we're in a hot desert that lends itself to ESG. I mean, you couple that with what we have in the management and the jurisdiction. Yeah.
And you've got a population who are very supportive of this work.
Definitely. Yeah.
It's their bread and butter. It's like tin mining in Cornwall back in the day. It's just what they do.
Yeah, if they're obstructive, then they get nothing.
I'll be honest. Anyone who's obstructive does not live out in those towns. It's you know how it is. You get like protesters who, they're protesting about some sort of development up in Leeds, but they live in Plymouth, and it's like, well, that's the situation you'd have in Australia. It'd be like people from Auckland. But the thing is, it couldn't happen there because Australia's bloody massive.
Well, it could be the society for the protection of the night parrot, couldn't it? So,
yeah, it's an interesting concept, isn't it, when you look at things like that? But I think that because of the fact that they're being so thoughtful, and Newcrest are so leading with this kind of stuff of supporting communities. And the ESG is coming forward, and as you say, if we're powering conveyors with solar power, that's got to make everybody happy, right? It's what I mean, and then we're switching to electric vehicles as well.
It's the right country for it. I think the Aussies will be leading the green revolution alongside the UK and most of the Western world.
Yeah, I would like to think so.
It has all the ingredients, and again, there was something Sean was at pains to stress. All the best mines have copper, and for the future, it's the world hasn't woken up to the simple capacity and supply. That's where Rick Rule's very good. He can go through in 5 years' time and sit down and actually say, well, look, what's going to be of shortage? This is how many copper mines you need to open over the next 5 years to satisfy this hypothetical demand. And when he does do those calculations, it's eye-opening. It's much the same as the nickel.
It's crazy,
one.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
So going back to my 100-year, because I do see like these little pockets of gold being found for the next 100 years.
Yeah, I don't think Havieron's the only one.
No, there'll be plenty more, and hopefully, boys, we'll find some of those in the next 10 years.
We'll we have the land for it. I mean, I'm very interested to see what happens down at Rudel and Pascale. Certainly, Pascale is the closest one we've got to Telfer.
Well, can you comment? Because again, this is more on the geological side, but I was interested in Sean's comments around EG. Because he was talking about this Archean green stone.
Oh, Ernest Giles.
And so I'm just wondering. I think he mentioned Calgary was Archean green stone.
It is.
Is this what's making them so excited? Is it?
Yeah, I mean, this is
that some of the biggest finds in the world have been in this structural geology. The Archean.
So I mean, really. Where these are obviously the Archean greenstones, that's kind of the rock type that you find mostly in Western Australia in what they call the Yilgarn Craton, which is the piece of land which is ultimately one of the oldest pieces.
From your very first presentation.
Yeah, the Yilgarn. Yeah, it's like because the Patterson's just north of it, and but the Yilgarn itself. I mean, I studied it in my masters, so I'm quite familiar with it. I mean, it's basically the same age as, near enough the same age as the Abitibi Greenstone Belt in Canada, which is also one of the great gold provinces in the world. And Ernest Giles sits right out in the eastern part of the Yilgarn Craton. It is essentially virgin ground. But the rest of, if you put up this is a good image actually, because you can almost pick it out, but there's the Yilgarn Craton's got this kind of triangle shape to it.
That's a bit too much detail.
Ernest Giles sits right out in the east, and they split the Yilgarn up into these terrains. They call them different terrains, and the the sort of eastern part of the Yilgarn Crown is called the Eastern Goldfield Super Terrain, and that in turn is split up into these little slices. And we're in a slice, I believe we're in, because I must admit I've had to look at maps, you know, from Greatland and overlay it on geological maps. We're either in what they call the Burtsville terrain, but I think we're in the Yamana terrain, which essentially is super underexplored. Most of the mines are in the a bit further west. The biggest deposit that's nearest to Ernest Giles is something called Laverton, which is massive. It's like 25 million ounces.
Do we have any neurology there? So let's just say...
Not really.
So we need an elephant. We need 5 million plus.
Yeah, I mean, so the nearest one is, honestly, it's 250 kilometres away. It's called Laverton, and Laverton is 25 million ounces, I think, which is big, as you know. But there's lots of these satellite deposits that may be a bit closer, but there's basically sort of 5 to 25 million ounce finds, somewhat basically 200 kilometers or so west or southwest. But the geology is believed to be very similar. I mean,
we've got 265 square kilometers. So
we've got a lot of ground there.
If you look at this map, you can actually see that there's an underlying horseshoe shape, and with the recent acquisitions, we have picked up every last little bit of ground, bar this little bit in the northeast.
Yeah, we've picked up quite a lot. I mean, the key thing is that the Archean greenstones. I mean, 70% of the gold in Australia is produced in Yilgarn. It's obviously the main gold province. There's actually more than one type of sort of style of gold deposit that is found in Yilgarn. The one we really want is orogenic gold, or lode gold. You'll sometimes hear it referred to. Basically produced in a mountain building, I think. But the difference, from my understanding, and this is where I haven't really studied lode gold or orogenic gold in any real detail, but I've kind of been over it before. It's different to intrusion related gold for a start. Like, it's much different. The key thing with the orogenic gold systems, that a lot of the gold and material will be hosted in veins, and the veins will be normally, a lot of the time, they're orientated. So one thing's for certain is that if you find a gold deposit in the Yilgarn, I'll be honest, it's more likely, it's definitely going to have some element of structural control to it. So you're going to be looking for folds, you're going to be looking for faults, you're probably going to be looking for even folds within folds that could be concentrating this.
And look, they're still undercover there, aren't they? So
yeah, they're under, but it's under shallower cover. It's like 150 meters.
The belt was under the cover, and that's why I think they're quite excited about it. Is this would have been picked apart by the mining companies decades ago, but
what's good,
you didn't know that the greenstone was under there.
What's good is that I think Ernest Giles is the one where they've actually found some gold there previously, where they pulled out, you know, some okay intercepts and maybe even got little nuggets. I seem to remember.
I think we did. Yeah, I think we did do some drilling, and that's obviously what got Newmont interested.
Yeah, and
the DSG technology, and we went nowhere. But then we found Have. So
the key thing is with Ernest Giles, if it is orogenic gold and it's hosted in veins and things like that, veins, you know, they're not breccias that have big extents. At times, you know, these veins can be quite narrow. So what we really need out here is good sample and drilling density, because, you know, if you've got a very nice tight spacing of veins and they're carrying, you know, 2 meters at like 20-30 gram per ton or something stupid like that, you need a lot of them in a small space.
Yeah.
So it's not like you're not going to be I don't think you'll be getting had 5 intercepts of like hundreds of meters at multiple gram per ton. I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's going to be shorter, basically smaller widths, but high grade, and you're going to need a lot of them in a tight space for it to be like good. But I think there's a lot of. I think there's a good chance you can. Certainly, this is in the right jurisdiction. You've got the right geology. I mean, obviously, this is somewhat virgin ground. Like, I think I think there's only one geological map available for this area that's produced in the late 1960s. So it's probably well out of date, if I'm being honest. not that that was done poorly. It was just done based on outcrop, which it's not necessarily representative of what's at depth. So, this area I think has got a lot of potential. It's certainly an area I would be targeting.
Exciting is we're going to be funded. I mean, I don't know about you guys if you've been involved in any early stage exploration companies, but there's a reason they're the highest risk companies, and there's a reason why a lot of the time you have 50 to 80% drawdowns. And it's unique in my short experience that you find an exploration company that's fully self-funded in perpetuity with a wonderful land package in the right postcodes.
I think Ernest Giles is definitely the best one we have outside of the Patterson.
This exploration for years to come. Whether or not we have the right ingredients to have an edge over everyone else. As much as I like, oh, is it out?
I've got a link.
Whoa!
Oh, here we are. I mean, in summary, we're quite excited about EG.
Now, as this loads up on my screen, I think this is likely to be just the. Actually, I've been given an exploration report.
Yeah, I've got quarterly exploration report. It's out.
That's what we want.
So is this the early one?
And can I just say there was a joke earlier which cannot be lost. I need to say it. Is a night parrot the same as a day bat? Which was from outside 2020, but it made me giggle mid cast there. So great joke.
Okay. So, the exploration report is actually, I think, it's the better document.
Yeah, definitely. There we go.
So before we go nuts into this, it is on there somewhere. The chat has gone crazy, by the way, gentlemen, as they ruin it for me. Thank you very much.
Well, I haven't looked. I'm gonna do this live review through it. So
let's
5% to 60 million US is what someone's just blurted out on the chat.
Yeah.
So we knew we were getting the 5%. So I wonder if that's in the exploration report or in the main report.
It's right here. The Javieron project is operated by Newcrest under a joint venture agreement with Greatland Gold. Newcrest holds a 70% interest in Javieron project as an option to acquire an additional 5% joint venture interest. The option price for the 5% interest has been determined by an independent valuer to be 60 million in accordance with the process under the joint venture agreement.
Newcrest can you share your screen?
Can I? Yes, I can. Un momento, por favor. Share. That one. Share.
Yeah, I can't see it.
And then I'm going to maximise that so I can read it.
Yeah, I've gone full screen for you. Underneath the JVA, Newcrest is 30 days from the 20th of July, so that's when the deal was agreed, I guess.
Well, today?
That's today. To elect whether to exercise the option. The JVA includes tolling principles reflecting the intention of the parties that, subject to a successful exploration program, feasibility study, and a positive decision to mine the resulting joint venture mineralized material, will be processed at Telfer. Drilling activity, I'm jumping ahead. We now have 306 holes. Drilling activities in the period have produced a further 11,796 metres of drilling from 21 holes, with up to 7 drilling rigs operating during the quarter. New assay results are reported from 18 holes, 5 from the previous quarter. Of the reported holes, 11 returned significant assay intercepts in excess of 50 gram metres, remembering we've already have a drilling report from 6 weeks ago. Gross drilling target mineralization definition and continuity continues to show potential from resource additions outside the existing inferred resource limits, including the southeast crescent, the eastern breccia, 8 holes. Ooh. And drilling has continued to target geophysical targets outside of the main system. 2 drill holes results from reported step out drilling north and south of the system. Oh, that's a new one.
Yeah.
So,
shall we return to the start, or shall we just keep going from now?
No way I can make this bigger, like the thing on my screen. I can't read it very well.
Could you push F11? Can I zoom in a little bit?
And I'm lost. What page are you on?
Oh, I have no idea.
Hang on.
10. No, you're on page down.
No.
Page 10 of 58. My word.
Got you.
The Eastern Breccia.
Well, look, let's address the elephant in the room, which is the 60 million, because it's probably got everyone.
I'm not going to get ahead of myself. I'm not looking at the chat right now, so.
It's a little bit low expectations. I think we need to be honest there. They've put it out in US. I think US I was expecting maybe 20 million more, personally. So I think that's slightly disappointing. It'll be interesting to see whether that was theirs or ours. I think that was theirs. Anyone else's? What's your feeling, guys?
I don't. I've never had a view on how much it was going to be, so it was never going to be a headline grabbing amount, was it? I mean, Sean's been prepping us for this for ages now. But the bottom line is, if they take this option, the shackles are off. Sean can do whatever he needs to do.
Oh, they'll take it. They'll take it, and I think at least we now can start going. Look, we've got 73 million in finance to organise, and we can put 10 million towards that. So we won't need to put that whole 10 million towards it. Probably need to put 5 towards it, which leaves us another 5 on top of the.
I'm putting mine up now.
Can I just ask before I ruin myself with a calculator here, if they've just valued our little 5% at 60 million, what does that make 100%?
Well, if you were trying to work it out as a share price.
No, I don't necessarily want to get involved in that right now.
No, if you're trying to round up if you're times it by 6 to get to 30%, which obviously then makes it go up to, then that'd be 360.
So 300.
Okay, let's not dwell on that now, because that's going to get painful.
But that's you got to remember, I think this 5% is being done at a particular point in time as well, so it's not going to include.
We all know that. Manage no expectations. I think I'm just saying overall it's slightly disappointing. Is it very disappointing? No, it's not very disappointing. The Canaccord was 20 million. We've paid off our loan. We've got 10 grand excess. So now I'm looking at 73 million loan. Call it a 65 million loan. That still leaves us with 15 million in the bank in cash. So look, I have to be honest, and we always are honest on this chat. This is a community. I'm just giving my feelings, but I do think that valuation of 60 million opens us up to a placing. Personally, I do think that means it's now possible. I'm not deramping or anything. I'm just saying we talked about this with Sean. It was something on. I'm not saying now. I'm saying there might be benefits of doing a placing. I'm not talking about it negatively. I'm saying there might be benefits to have a 20 or 50 million cash runway here, and you might find that tomorrow or in the weeks to come or months or years to come that actually we're going to augment equity with debt financing. So there might be more, and the good thing is at this point I'd want to be involved in that placing. At this point I'd want to invest money into that placing. So I think that forget the number, the uncertainty that's been removed means that the way is forward now. But everyone on the chat I think is slightly disappointed with that, not ridiculously so. I think 80 million I would have been happy with, 100 million I would have been ecstatic with, 60 million slightly disappointed with. I think that's just probably the honest feeling of everyone, I imagine. But what do you guys feel? I
think the problem there is the fact it doesn't match up to what we're so ahead of the curve on so many different aspects of this.
Yeah.
That this is behind the curve, isn't it? It's not even on the curve, it's behind the curve. So you're constantly, we're in real time, but someone's trying to reset my Facebook password.
Oh,
fun.
Hello.
Yeah.
Being hacked.
Being hacked live on stream. Yeah. Good. Thanks, guys. Cheers for that.
Okay, so Dips, normally I wouldn't focus in on a comment like this, but Dips just said in the chat that the 5% was done on the 15th of December 2021. When he's
it's PFS, isn't it?
When he says it's done, does he mean that 5% was done on the date?
That's the date then. So that's the key, right? It's 60 million based on the date then.
Yeah.
Not now. So we've even upgraded our MRE since then, haven't we?
Yeah.
And I think that's the key part. Thinking about something Sean said recently. What did he say? I hope he doesn't mind me saying this out loud. The option pricing was triggered back at a point in time in December 2021.
Yeah.
I observed that the PFS was released shortly beforehand, which put a net present value, however incomplete, on the Javieron project.
Yeah.
I think this context is useful in understanding how the market views potential pricing outcome.
I think as well, you've got to just take if take that information as it is, then what you have to realize that this 60 million, it's not as if this is based on all knowledge, up to this point and all knowledge going forward. This 60 million does not necessarily represent the value of Javieron as an asset.
We've got to disconnect.
It is the value of Javieron at that point in time.
Well, it's almost not.
5%.
It's almost not though, and I think this is where we need to be quite specific. It is a part of our funding strategy, assumed under contract years ago before we knew what we have here.
Because actually, the pre-feasibility study, that thing that they're saying is based on, right?
Yeah.
You got to remember the information that was in that was lagging. It was lagging behind.
8 months. Yeah, I think.
Wasn't it based on something in October?
Feb 2021, I think the PFS data was banked upon. I think that's the way we've got to look at this now. Is this was a funding mechanism that if this was a small, quick to drill, bit would have carried us through to production. We've been the victim of our own success. It's so big that it hasn't, and we had to draw a line in the sand. So this isn't telling us how much the deposit is worth. It's telling us. It's telling us the outcome of a funding.
It's basically valuing what the southeast crescent and the part of the northern breccia that they included in that particular thing is worth. So it's got no information. It basically the eastern breccia doesn't exist in that calculation
at all.
The rest of the northern breccia that they subsequently added into the reserves is not in that calculation. The southeast crescent deeps is not in that calculation. So essentially, you're valuing as it's always it's a portion of a portion. That is essentially, I've basically bought, if I'm buying a McDonald's Happy Meal, I've got the toy. I've not got the food yet. That's basically what I've bought with 60 million.
I like that. That's a good way of looking at it. Okay.
Look, and I think also there's comments rolling in, but I think it's worth commenting on this one. So it says the excited build up to these results feels strangely reminiscent of Scally. I hope the LSE purge has not clouds over. I'd just like to call that comment out because I think that's totally incorrect.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think
Scally was worse than that.
I think we've had our expectations measured from a while ago. The share price has acted accordingly. We're not going to get a 40% drop in the morning. We have this uncertainty removed, and let's look at the positives. The loans cleared, man. We pay back Newcrest, bang. Yeah. We got 10 million in the bank. We were talking before we went on air about getting an entire 95 or 100%.
At the minimum, it needed to be that money to pay back Newcrest.
Obviously, what Sean's been doing. So do you know what? Let's watch SD, because he could easily walk in tomorrow and say, guys, I've organized 123 million finance and we need to pay 10 million towards it. Okay, let's now look at GGP, right? We've got our finance sorted with a payback period of 3 years with our starter mine, and we've got 50 million plus the placing money in the bank. What's not to like about that? And that is the 60 million. So that's.
I'd also like to say that comment, like scallywag. Honestly, that was. The reason that was particularly bad is but there was nobody, absolutely nobody on the bulletin boards and on any other chat room or any other person out there that thought that Scallywag was going to produce essentially a duster in the first half. There wasn't anybody, so it was a massive smack in the face. It was almost like it was like turning up to a club thinking you're going to put a 10 and actually you pulled a 1. Yes, that's what you've done.
I think the sentiment was like that, but I think that was because of our sort of inexperience.
Yeah, in reality, I think I did a video, didn't I, that explained that This is what happens in exploration.
Went through the same excitement with Ernest Giles. When GH came out and said, "We think we found the biggest find in a decade." That was our CEO. He came out and said that. That was the same as Sean's 20 million ounce statement. When your CEO says, "We think we found the biggest find in a decade," it turned to nothing, and we all lost 80% of our money. So I think anyone who's been involved in exploration and gone through it, just a few of those 80% drawdowns when Artemis shows us the cores and turns out to have nothing on assays. You need to go through 3 or 4 of those in your investing career before, believe me, you always believe it's dust. It's always dust. We're playing a lottery game here. We really are. The good part is we've found our lottery. We've got our winning ticket already.
Should we get into these? Should we get into these assays?
Let's get into the assays.
They're leading with the Eastern Breccia, which I love.
They are.
Me too. Let's get into
the Eastern Breccia, 8 holes targeting strike and depth extensions from previously reported drill holes have been received, with 7 holes awaiting assays. The Eastern Breccia is developed below the 4,100 RL with a footprint of over 500 meters in strike, up to 200 meters in width, and over 250 meters in vertical extent. The Eastern Breccia remains open at depth. Oh, bummer.
Woo.
Within this zone, multiple northwest trending internal higher grade sulfide dominated domains, easy for me to say, were observed.
Multiple.
Results for the let me just say that again, because that was a damn mouthful and I was going slowly. Within this zone, multiple northwest trending internal higher grade sulfide dominated domains are observed. Results for the quarter further highlight geological continuity of higher grade within the Eastern Breccia. Now, we might have seen these 6 weeks ago, but I'm just going to say 51 metres at 1.1 gram per tonne, 39 metres at 2.9 grams per tonne, 54 metres at 3.8 grams per tonne, and
20 metres at 10 within that. I mean, that's noteworthy. 20 metres at 10 within that, and 14 metres at 8 within that. Those are crescent numbers, aren't they?
I like the last one where it's got nearly 1% copper across 82 meters. That is so good.
Drill holes,
82 meters, nearly 1%.
Drill holes targeting the Eastern Breccia also provide infill drill intercepts within the mineral resource in the Northern Breccia and Southeast Crescent. That's a hell of a drill. These results are in line with model grades in the area. For reporting completeness, these infill resource intercepts are in Appendix 3, highlighted in the drill data, and supporting sections and diagrams. Looking down at the Southeast Crescent Deeps, growth drilling continues along. Results were received from 2 drill holes with 1 awaiting assay, where had 133 wedge 9 has extended the Crescent higher grade zone by a further 100 meters to over 1,000 vertical meters. Now, we got excited about that last time, and there's no way that's including your 5%. That's now over 1,000 vertical meters of mineralization, people. Let's not forget that. That's not even considered in your $60 million. You know what I mean? So we're still going. However, the drilling's just tapering of the higher grade mineralization with depth. That's the first time they've said that. Further drilling is planned to test the potential of this.
That's with the Southeast Crescent Deeps we're talking about here, not the Eastern Breccia. So who cares?
It's interesting they've
if it then increases again with the Eastern Breccia.
I think it's interesting because they've only put essentially 3 holes in the period into the Southeast Crescent Deep. They put in 15 in the Eastern Breccia.
Well, I think also we're still in that growth drilling, and they have the infill drilling for the Southeast Crescent for the starter mine, don't they? So I guess I
think they're just. I think it's clear that they're moving their drilling to different parts of the ore body.
Yeah, because there's no point. We've got enough that we need for the Southeast Crescent, and also
I just don't think it's going to add too many more ounces.
Once the decline's down there, we're going to be able to drill straight into it laterally, aren't we? So why waste any time in what we already know is commercial?
Uh-huh.
And then we've got these lovely diagrams. I mean, look at that. If that's not telling you, if this is where it's starting to taper off, and then as you say, Stu, below that, you've got the Eastern Breccia target. And I think that really does lend itself to showing just how deep. And in fact, the Crescent Deeps target goes beyond that.
And that's what they were
Isn't
just
it?
talking about now, is in the Crescent Deeps is where it was starting to tail off. But that's most likely just looking at that diagram from a layman's perspective. I think the Eastern Breccia fed all of this in my mind's eye, and it's just been squeezed through the Southeast Crescent Deeps and expanded as it found more porous means above it. So
I mean, look at
in
the
the, in
size.
the
Breccia is where there's this big pool of ore of second ovoid that Bamps calls it.
in Figure 7, they leave off the diorite, which is annoying. But I guess it's just simplicity. It's just interesting. They mention a line here where they say they did test some targets outside of the mineralized envelope, but they didn't find anything. They basically were testing north and south of the mineralized envelope, including evaluating the Havre dolerite at multiple intervals. In my mind, at least in the nearby vicinity, this dike, this structure, it doesn't look like you're going to find much sort of in the nearby vicinity, north and south, by the looks of it, because they've done this a couple of times now. Obviously, you can keep trying. You might be missing it by only a little bit, as we know. But I think they put in about 4 or 5 holes now, north or south. They haven't really had any luck.
There's a good point just brought up on the chat, and so it's worth mentioning. So Chris Ferris has said if you take into account the dollar exchange rate in December, it makes today's number worth 66 million back then. And it's worth mentioning, our costs are in AUD. So it's the AUD gold price and copper price, and it's the AUD costs, which again, Sean mentioned in his presentation, much of their costs, Newcrest costs, are under long-term contracts. So we're quite insulated from this high inflation. This high inflation world that we're experiencing at the moment. And again, it's another unique thing about us. You have this existing, infrastructure there with long-term contracts for trucking and processing and FIFO staff and absolutely everything. We would normally be paying 9.4%. Okay, that's the UK amount, but another 10% due to inflation on those, and we aren't, because those are fixed costs. Newcrest agreed via contract. So. Yeah, again,
we'll get a good deal there.
It's unique from a cost perspective.
Figure eights, and I think figure eights are really nice, like 3D, just image of sort of the main targets, isn't it? It's got all of basically the 4 main parts to this.
Man, that 150 meters at 3.7 and just still blows my mind, man. And the 342 meters at 2 grams.
It's just ridiculous numbers.
The continuation of that is just, it lends itself to, you've been talking about veins in these other deposits, and surely a 200 meter intercept at 2 grams is far better than a 10 meter intercept at a higher grammage, because it just
depends. Like, obviously you're talking gram, maybe you're right. I think it is better, like 200 meters at 2 grams, that's 400 gram meters.
It's just that bulk. It's that bulk mining potential, isn't it?
This is why if you're going for these narrow, small veins, you need serious grade to be.
Or you're going to have that much more waste rock, and I think that's where
completely
confirmed again. Best he'd seen his career, but it was whatever that waste factor was. It was minimal.
Figure 9.
I think this picture here really does help you appreciate fraction of a fraction.
It's something to see it develop with those lines, isn't it?
Only 5% of what you're seeing inside those lines is worthy of that. With that data that they've got, is worthy of that 60 million. So
I think who knows what the market will do tomorrow, but I think what page are you on, by the way, Liam?
Oh man, like 100.
Oh, okay. I thought
54. I'm all the way at the bottom. I turned it
I'm on 14 at the minute on my own screen, because they talk about.
I didn't want to upset Bamps.
We've got drilling. We've got drilling focused on the A27 anomaly in the Black Hills region. That's currently done. Another thing, just on that topic, in the presentation earlier, we have just started drilling the Ramses target.
Right.
So that was in the presentation earlier as well. That's what the guy said.
Let's go back up and get. I want to know about those targets outside of the variant. We haven't heard any.
They
were duds.
They were duds. I've got them right here.
Lens.
If you look just here, you've got 154, which is to the south. Can you see that down there?
They've got nothing in it. There's nothing.
And then
around
155. And then when you look at the drill targets just here, no significant
You have to ask the question if they are going to, because they do say they're going to continue trying. If you assume that they don't find anything north and south of the in terms of the dot, you have to ask the question: why is Havieron where it is? Why is the gold why is the copper at that location and not further north or south? Why is it restricted to that one part? That is a very good question that I'm sure the geologists will be poring over. If you assume that they didn't find anything north
Let's
or
take
south.
it back to the top, and we'll go from there. Any questions in the comments there, Stu, while I'm scrolling up?
I mean, I'll mention it because it's Stuart Hines, and I think we all owe a debt of gratitude to Stuart for his Twitter work. The photos and the contacts he's made, and I get his feeling. He said 60 million is a kick in the teeth. Get real, guys. You can't polish a turd, but you can roll it in glitter. Dreadful outcome. Gloves off, Sandeep. You will pay later. I think we all get that sentiment, but I also think it's been managed. It's a little more disappointing than I thought. I'd been managed down to 80 million. We're 60 million. Whose number? There's been a lot of chats there as well about whose number it is. Who's been agreed? I think it's Newcrest's.
There's definitely more Newcrest.
I think we would have been much closer to the 84. I think that someone like Sprott would have been talking to GGP at some point before releasing that note. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think that's Newcrest's number. I don't think we've been shafted. I think we've been shafted by our own success, as I said. Unfortunately, this is the truth. For who's been shafted are the people who invested at Scully and cannot afford to wait another 3 years. Unfortunately, they have been shafted. Do I see a big drop tomorrow? I'm not sure. A dip to 9p. Look, I'll be honest. I've been keeping 10% back. It's in another share, so I'll have to sell that share first. But I've been keeping 10% back, thinking that was a half decent hedge. Do I feel that I'm going to have the time to sell that other share and move across at 9p tomorrow? I'm not sure. I think this isn't a good outcome, but it's not catastrophic. We've paid off all of our debts plus the interest. And we can now go to the banks for what Sean sounded like last week he'd already got from the banks. So I'm reserving judgment. I think tomorrow for me represents an opportunity because I think at Hoppers 3 we're going to get finance. Come on, let's just think about this logically. And I know I'm jumping to conclusions, but this is what we're all here for: is to just hash out some logic, right? If you're not going to announce anything to do with finance at this point, then you are releasing a webinar. You're releasing an RNS at 7 like you normally would, and your webinar is at 10 in the morning. Because all you're doing is talking about what's been released by Newcrest and what you've rehashed in your RNS. The fact that it's Hoppers 3 tomorrow afternoon is for me a very, very big, it's not a red flag. There's something else here. This GGP RNS is not going to be just a mirror of this. Something else happens tomorrow, in my opinion. And I think it's finance.
And I think that's the thing, is we've only got half the story. This is Newcrest's side of the story, isn't it? This is all we're viewing right now, is Newcrest's side. What matters is what comes out of Sean Day's mouth, not only tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock in the RNS, not only in the potential proactive interview, which is probably, going to happen, and then, as you say, further down the line, and any subsequent RNSs that come along. This is just the beginning.
The way they've announced it, and again, I'm just talking about...
they've downplayed it so badly.
The way they've announced it to me tells me they knew these results some time ago. And Sean's comments last week about having the RNS written for some time was a clue. And I think that gives him a good platform to have already done a lot of groundwork with banks. I think, this number was available at the beginning of the month.
Yeah, I reckon the banks know.
And he's been said, look, and we've had that email from Newcrest saying it was probably going to be released. If it was going to be released, it'll be released officially in one of these releases on their quarterlies, and it has been. Let's take the positives here. Sean has had a head start with talking to banks. He's known this number for some time. This isn't something they've worked out today. The independent valuer didn't come back yesterday or last week. Yeah, this is something that's been agreed for the last month at least. So that's
yeah. He's known. I think that's where he's gone to the bank
after the webcast with nothing more. Then shit. I'll be honest. 60 million is disappointing.
But we need to remember that Newcrest haven't actually said yes.
Oh, come on.
No, absolutely, Stu. I agree. They're not going to not. They're not. Yeah. You know, the chances of it are highly likely. But and do you know what I mean? Like, until they do, that money's not coming into our bank. Blah 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 blah.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd like to think they've got a strong enough relationship where Sean's gone and said, look, Sandeep, even before you announce it, are you going to buy this? We've got the 60 million figure. I need to go speak to banks. We want to be a valid JV partner. We want to be fully funded. We want you to, we don't want any delays, neither do you. And are you going to buy it? And, it's 60 million for 5% of one of the best deposits found in how many decades.
Yeah.
Fruta del Norte paid 100 million for 1% of that Ecuadorian deposit that might never be mined. They've got the deal of the century. This was a funding mechanism, not a valuation of the company. People have to remember that.
Yes.
Or if you are stupid enough to sell tomorrow, and this is not financial advice, but by God, if you've waited all this time, unless you need the money next week, if you think there's a spike down tomorrow, just understand how AIM works. It'll spike down and it'll be back possibly even in the blue by the afternoon. So just have a think.
Well, I have no idea how the market's
decisions. The 60 million is not valuing our company.
I agree with that. I don't think it is either. In fact, it's not even a think; it's a fact.
Yeah, that is an absolute fact.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think 60 million is the outcome. I think the majority of shareholders wanted at all. I think it does fall below what people wanted.
They want the headline numbers, don't they?
Yeah, I mean,
there's a small drop.
I think what it does do, it obviously, when the money does come in, because I am definitely, I don't even think the bookies would give you odds on Newcrest it'd be like, what are you talking about?
Absolutely, it's like somebody saying
that 60 million's ours.
Yeah.
It's ours to do what we want to do with it. That means essentially, if we wanted to, we could pay off all of what we owe Newcrest with 10 million spare.
We have to pay that. That's part of the contract.
Yeah. So, well, obviously, it's a big uncertainty that is now it's over.
It's over, and you've got to look what we went from 16 million. Let's assume 4 million very fag packet calculations. So we're probably sitting on 10 million in excess of the loan, and we're then sitting on maybe another 15 million USD. So that's 25 million cash in the bank. So you've got to look at where we are now. We're 25 million cash in the bank and no debt.
A junior miner with 25 million.
123. CapEx of 123, which we can pay back in 3 years.
A junior miner, who has, in my opinion, the best ore deposit in Australia, arguably definitely in the top set of the world, with 25 million cash at hand, essentially what you're saying, in the bank, what we ready to deploy by whatever means we want, with a major partner who is paying for the bulk of one of the JVs. And so, it's actually, when you phrase it like that, it doesn't sound too bad.
It's not.
I won't lie to you. That's me. That is me polishing the turd slightly. Because I don't want to beat around the bush. It's not the number we wanted, but I think you have to, like Stuart keeps saying, it is not a valuation of the company. It is not a valuation as Havieron as a whole. In my opinion, it's a valuation on essentially that document that came out was in December, which was based on drill results. It's either based on the drill results up to October 2021 or February 2022, and I can't remember which one it is. Either way, it's well out of date, as we all know. But that is what that's when they exercise the option. It's based on when they chose to do that. So yeah, I think it's money in the bank. We can do what we want with it. It's a big uncertainty gone. It does free up. It basically unshackles Sean to a large extent.
We can get on the offensive big style now.
Basically, he can get on the accelerator. He's got free reign to do that. So yeah, I mean, I think this
finance is everything. This is we are taking all the risks by being shareholders right now.
And you just renegotiated the terms with that other company for the amount of shares that get released. He did I think what did he take off? Something like the equivalent of £3 million.
Yeah, I mean, you look at that for good business. I mean, we could be faced with what potentially is a 5-10% drop in the morning, only for someone to try and unload 145 million.
Yeah,
shares.
and they can't do that for a number of months.
Would have been disastrous. Not that they would.
So he has done what he can to essentially safeguard the position. To my mind, a large part of the last few months of the share price decline is nothing to do with the company. It's to do with the macroeconomic environment. You look at I'll tell you a share you want to look at, right? That exacerbates this. Have a look at a share called Audio Boom, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
right.
Well.
So I made a joke the other day. It was their ticker's Boom. I was like, they should change it as a bust because it's like a mountain. It's like this. Yeah. But what I think it shows you, that chart, is essentially, the bubble bursting. The bubble that took Great Gold to 36 pence. And ultimately burst.
And look at Great Gold, guys. Look at Power Metals. 1 pence up to 4.5 pence, back down to 0.75 of a penny.
Yeah, every share you look at right now has been every share has been busted.
I had a brilliant text today which gave you someone's analysis. Well, not someone's. I think it was Bloomberg. And it went through the drawdowns, but in this year, but per sector, and commodities was the worst hit.
Oh, it's terrible.
More than consumer cyclical, more than retail.
But then this is the deceiving part.
The only sector that's up. So I think you've probably got to take 30% at least.
It's incredible, really, when you consider
just for macroeconomics. Then you've got to put the shorters in and the 5% and the Lassonde curve in. We're probably where we bloody should have been, and we're all just a bit pissed off that we didn't see it coming and get out and buy back.
Hindsight's 20, isn't it?
I was begging my family to buy in the 20s, begging, guaranteeing investments, doing everything I could. Did I ever see it here? No, I didn't.
I just think I think the main thing I'm trying to get at is that the thing that dropped 36p, the Scallywag news, that was an actual news event that dropped the price, and probably somewhat deservingly so. It was the catalyst for the downtrend, and it happened to coincide with a change in sentiment in the market, macroeconomic conditions, which I think is responsible for the last 6 months. I just don't think an uncertainty around 5% is responsible for taking a share.
No, of course it's not.
50%. It's macroeconomic
stuff. Anywhere else, even the GDXJ, for goodness sake, there's the perfect indicator. It's our entire sector wrapped up into an ETF. Look at it.
Yeah, you look at it. I do think with the 5% and the duration, I have no idea how long this bear market is going to last. I don't think anyone does. I mean, some analysts are saying it could be over
18 months more,
or whatever.
I suspect.
Either way, the point I'm trying to get at is this: like this 5%. If you ask, I think this was the last piece of bad news that could possibly have come in. What bad news have we got left? Potentially. This is what I'm saying. I mean, if there's gonna be a near-term bottom, it probably could be after this.
On that point, Magic, so some good news. Decline is 489 meters as of the 13th of July.
Yeah, and even then they said that it's experienced poor ground.
Weeks ago, so 489 meters. That's starting to pick up pace, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think they do say in that thing that these poor ground, blah blah blah. I think that's based on. You got to remember, this is reporting for the last, 3-4 months, whatever. So, what they're drilling now, I think, is the good stuff. So I think that'll be the next. I reckon in the next update that they do, it'll be a number of meters ahead because I think they're going to be into the much better material. So that's good. Obviously, I think they'll get. I have confidence they'll get that on time. I think they'll get the decline done on time. I mean, I can't know for sure, but you know, I have good confidence that will be done on time because I think they'll make it happen on time.
For anyone worried about these shorts, I mean, if we are to be believed, and it's 70 million of them that need to close, I think it might be less. But even if you think that this is bad news, and I'm reading the sentiment of the chat, and I think we're probably on a 70% of the people on here think it's bad news, as in not as good as we hoped. So what's that worth? 10 or 15% drop in the share price? Well, let me tell you, 70 million of shares are worth a lot more than 10 or 15% drop.
I just think if they were holding out the shorts,
they were holding out for.
If they were holding the because I think that the shorts are being based. They're not doing. They were doing this based on I think the 5%. I think that was the reason they put them on. And therefore, if that event's now been and gone, then if you're the manager, if you're the funds manager, the hedge funds manager that is managing these short positions,
you're saying close tomorrow morning.
What's your risk reward now on your shorts? I'll be honest, you've won. You've done well. You've done extremely well.
If you get 10% on open, you are biting someone's hand off, right? You have the possibility of SD announcing full finance for this project in the afternoon. I mean, it might be a remote possibility, but I give it a 30-40% chance. And that's where I think we'll meet the measure of this man, is if he does put a rabbit out the hat tomorrow at 3:30 and announces something.
Well, I think the other thing it does now is Sean Day is out of the disclosure period. I think now he has the ability to buy shit. I think now he has.
He's been to the bank and he's got himself a loan.
I tell you what, and you know what? I wouldn't wish it on a nicer man. Just imagine we drop down to 8.5p for the first 15 minutes, and then we get an RNS that Sean Day is managed.
TR1, yeah, bang.
And then the shorts all close, and we're back up at 14p.
Who knows? I mean.
He deserves that. He deserves.
I just think now, if nobody can read the market. I'm just putting my logical brain on trying to read a situation. You know, from a news standpoint, I fail to see any. Obviously, unless there's some random black swan event that happens, what negative news is there that could possibly, from a company perspective, could possibly drive down?
Only the worst kind of news.
Only the worst kind of news. So you know, if you're trying to buy something based on, if you're someone who buys shares based on, you know, news and stuff like that, you know, and you're trying to evaluate a worst case scenario, well, you haven't really got too much negative news to come factor in. So I really think there's a near-term bottom.
Yeah,
I don't know where the bottom's going to be because, as I said before, every share that's downtrending right now is doing so because of a macroeconomic thing.
Macro factors. Everyone's predicting a recession. At the very least, we're going to have some stagflation. It's very likely, and interest rates are going up for the remainder.
It's incredible, isn't it? That I think last year, all I read was, the dollar, so much money printing, it's devalued, it's worthless. Got to put your money in metals, blah blah blah. And I'm not even saying that it wasn't illogical. What's happened? Dollar's the strongest it's been in 25 years.
Yeah, but
dollar's now worth more than the euro, which I've never seen in my lifetime.
No,
right? But the total opposite of what should happen has happened.
You have to understand the macroeconomics because I agree. I've watched all the same talking heads that I think most investors do. Gold bugs, Rick Rules of this world.
Yeah.
And so expecting the same. But remember when we were going through the bull market at late 2020, the DXY, the dollar index was 92. It's now 108. And I think there's always been that direct correlation with gold. But what you've got to understand is also the milkshake theory. And I don't know if any of you have researched that, but briefly, obviously the entire world is the dollar is the reserve currency, and what's happening at the moment is whilst people are devaluing their money, they're also trying to settle their dollar denominated debt because it's becoming so much more expensive with the strength of the dollar. So what's happening is dollars are returning globally they're returning to the US globally because people are trying to settle debt at these low interest rates because of what the economic macro outlook is. And as those dollars return and as people sell their shares and so on, it's pushing the dollar up because everyone's holding the dollar. So it's a little bit fake. It's not necessarily going to last forever. And I think you've just got to sort of understand.
Oh, I agree. It's just
dying. The dollar is still dying, and gold is still the best aspect of that. And if you don't believe in the gold macro, then we have copper, and the two combined sets us apart.
We've got both. Just a nice little segue just to cheer us all up. Bounce has been out with his tape measure. At 1,000 meters, this beast of a beautiful ore body is now 500 meters by 900 meters.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the top is now 500 meters by 900 meters, and then 1.1 down.
No, it's 1,000 meters down. That's how big it is. So it might be 650 by 350 at top. It's
at that point, it's that.
It's that big.
It fattens out, doesn't it? It fattens out a bit.
Bamps has just also literally popped up. Had 154A wedge 4, deepest hole tonight, 1,202 vertical depth, or 19.6 at 9.9 grams per ton.
Yes, huge numbers. And is that the one that has 1.96% copper intercept as well? That's just so good. It kind of gets it's very weird what's happening with the copper at Having, because it seems to disappear somewhat in the middle of the ore body. Like there's copper at the upper from about 650 meters, say. But then about 1,000 meters, I think it kind of goes away a little bit, and then it's there at depth. So it's weird what's happening with copper, but it is there, and it's in definitely economic quantities. So very good for us. You know, I just think, you know, the time now for Great Gold, Sean Day, to maximise the potential of this ore body is only really just beginning now. Now that the 5%'s done,
and also you want to get this 5% done in the bear market. You know, the risk reward is clear. Yeah, is there a 10 or 20% or even 30% drawdown if the whole market collapses globally? Sure. And I think most people are here for the longer term, but my goodness me, we're at the top of that sector. The moment it turns, we're in the quality, the absolute quality.
You got to remember, it's boom and bust cycles in mining. I think, you know, it's like, thing is, when the next bull market rolls around, whether it be in the mining sector or across the board in the market, you know, everything gets bought. Everybody starts buying everything, and I find it hard to believe that Havieron isn't very well known. So where are you going to? I mean, if you're picking a miner, if you're picking a junior explorer, even if you're someone who likes to get, you know, gamble, whatever, about on the market, well, Great Gold is a very well known share, so it will attract a lot of money, I think, from private investors. And on top of that, we've got the whole institutional angle which Sean's working. So I do think it will be a matter of time before, you know, share price goes up and starts basically clawing back a lot of the money that people have ultimately, you know, they're sitting in the red here. I think most people who are in this sort of live chat, who are at the meeting, of probably in the red.
People have been holding money back for this because of the uncertainty. I mean, now in hindsight, it would have seemed like a prudent thing to do. But if you're a long-term holder,
it only comes with experience, though.
And as much, you're happy to wait out these ups and downs. But
you've also got to decide what type of investor are you. Yeah. Because you know, yes, you are right. I think in hindsight, everybody would have you know, got rid of them and bought back lower. But you know, it's experience. It's an experience thing, and like I said, it is dependent on what type of investor you are. If you're somebody who plans to hold for 10, I don't know, however long, years and years, then you may be sitting there thinking, well, this is just noise.
Even let's look at that for the short or the medium term holder, because obviously our audience is going to have all three involved.
Mm-hmm.
look at how I posted earlier on the chat today. We're currently valued at 80 to 85 million US dollars. So as our share price is, if you're taking the 5% and you're timesing it by 6 and you're working it back to our market cap, we're currently valued at 80 million, 81 million, I think it is, at 409 million market cap. Right. So 81 million would have been what you expected to break even with tonight for the 5%. If you were valuing our company on the 5% that is on data from February 2021. And anyone who knows about this company knows that that's just stupid because it's 18 months out of date and it's growing at 50% a year. But the other side is you've got a jury joint venture in there and all of the rest of the company to go. So not only have we been valued by this 5%, 21 million under what we should be valued as, everything else of Greatland Gold is absolutely free. So no one should be looking at this as a valuation of the company. And for me, this presents an opportunity in the morning if the share price does dip. What is 60 million compared to 81 million as far as the percentage terms go? It's calling for a 15 or 20% drop in the morning. But that's if you're valuing us at 6 times.
Market does weird things though.
Market does very weird if you are and you're missing an opportunity tomorrow. So I don't know.
I've been seeing good announcements.
I'm hoping there is a dip tomorrow morning because I will be a buyer.
I've been seeing good announcements from companies that are reporting growing revenues, getting smashed 25% on the market.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I've also seen some absolutely diabolical announcements. Share price doesn't move.
I've seen some, and the share price goes up.
Yeah, it's mental. It's mental.
Yeah. Trading in the last few weeks that have gone 80% in a day. We're on the AIM market. It's
only logical ones I've been seeing actually. If you follow any of the retail companies, and they're obviously some of them are forecasting that they're going to be dropping their growth in profits. Blah blah blah. They're getting battered. Because I think everybody understands why that's bad, but got the rave light on.
They were my party lights. I was gonna go to party mode if it was like a stonker.
But I just think
million. You was gonna open the wine. I was gonna bang on my party lights.
I wouldn't be shocked if basically you get what is I've seen referred to as an undercut and rally tomorrow, where you basically open down, or even not even open down, you spike down, and what it's going to do is it's going to rattle number of investors potentially to sell. It will catch any day traders potentially as well, and then obviously that grab of liquidity comes in, and it starts to rally upwards. These are trade. If you're someone who day trades, it's a tradable opportunity because you watch like the 30-minute chart or whatever it is, and you just go, right, well, open down. Let's see. We'll take a trade when it basically rallies back above the open, and we'll see if I can scalp X amount of points. So that's normally what. I wouldn't be shocked if that happened tomorrow because this market's weird and don't make sense.
Well, without a doubt, we're going to have a drop on open and a bounce. It's just if you're going to.
It just depends. Like, just watch the volume. Watch.
Dropping. How big is the bounce?
That's the other thing. If you've been looking at the volumes that have been traded on the last, probably the last few months, it's been dry. It's been
terrible.
No,
terrible.
And
in 7 years.
You don't want what
you boys talking at the same time.
Yeah, there's been uncertainty, hasn't there, for obvious reasons. So I think people haven't. Anyone who's been in GGP a while has set their stall out. They would have already either kept the cash aside or accepted that they're all in and wait for the
the decisions have been made somewhat, haven't they? I mean,
so I think the volume plays hand in hand with what we would have expected. Watch the volume tomorrow.
Yeah, I just think what you don't want falling price with. You don't want rising volumes with a falling price because then that's obviously indication that there's distribution.
Yeah.
So if it's falling on poor volume tomorrow,
I think there'll be a lot of volume tomorrow, and
I just think if there's a lot of volume,
the shorts are going to try and exit, which is obviously going to create.
If there is a lot of volume tomorrow, but the share price finishes down 1%, that's also good as well because it shows you that even though there's been an extremely large amount of volume that's gone through, share price hasn't fallen very much. There's a lot of different scenarios. I do a lot of that now in my own sort of work with the market. I look at volume a lot because I think it tells you a lot. So I'll be interested to see what happens tomorrow with that. I hope that it doesn't really, for the sake of everybody. I don't want it to. I don't want it to go down tomorrow. I don't want it to spike down 20% or whatever it is, or preferably I would love this to buck the trend like some of these other shares on the market. Oh, we got bad news. Oh, don't worry, up 5%. Well, it's almost like a pity rise. It's like, oh, can't drop them another like this much after that. Give them a 5% bump, make them feel good.
I just want to address a couple of points in the in the chat.
I'm nearly out of popcorn.
Out of interest, that 60 million, if my calculations are right, valued us at 7p. So
7p for in December.
Correct.
What does our MRE price?
For no 20 million jury JV, for no 16.5 million cash in the bank, and for no of any of our other licenses whatsoever. So this is what I'm saying. We're priced for where we should be right now. If you take that and it's worth 7p, and you bash in our cash and you bash in the rest of the whole of Greatland Gold as a company, and the knowledge that we're 18 months behind the curve, how are we not worth 10p? We're worth still with the 60 million, 12, 13p. So I don't know. For me, if there's a big drop in the morning in the order of anything more than 10%, I'm a buyer. I think it's temporary. I think it's a drop and a bounce, and the shorts come running.
I'm getting a drink, by the way. One sec.
Ah, brutal. Yeah. So just want to address. I've just unmuted him. Sorry. I just want to address a couple of comments. That it's moved up a bit now. Moved. Someone said that Newcrest's offer of 30p for the lot will seem better after that disappointment, and I completely disagree with that statement, I'm afraid, because our 20% that we own is now worth
25.
so much more.
25. Don't give away another 5%.
Have I just given away another 5%? It's getting late, Stu. We've been on air now for 2 hours and 20 minutes. I ran out of tea 2 hours ago. I've been drinking the dregs of a tea bag.
I'll drink the dregs of my water because I probably need it this time.
but our 25%, if you want that 25%, you're going to have to fight for it, because I tell you what, you ain't getting that for piss all.
Yeah. And I think this is where the community, to me, adds value. If you are in a position to buy on any sort of drop, if there is one tomorrow, the understanding that we give and that the group gives and that the community is built up is your value disconnect. That is where you're sitting there going, oh my God, these idiots have dropped it to 9p tomorrow or 8p or whatever the case is.
Fire now!
They're mad. In one short year's time, it's double and triple that, because that's just going to be your cash flow. So I think, for me, it's not as bad as it could have been, but I am still disappointed. And
natural. Oh, I've got to remember I've got a microphone on. I'm so used to having a microphone in front of my face that I keep scratching my clothes and my microphone. Hello, everybody. So, look, as I say, we've been on air for almost 2.5 hours now, so I think we should wrap this up somewhat. Is there anything else you boys want to cover with tonight's exclusive 5%?
No. As Stuart's saying, Stuart's right. Let's finish on the drill results quickly, because we haven't actually.
No, absolutely. That's what I wanted to get back to.
Yeah, we haven't actually had a proper little chinwag about those. Let's just do those quickly and then clock off.
I've lost them.
We've got the Eastern break here, which we've gone through, which I thought what was quite interesting was the variance in the copper. So you've got 0.07 CU from 1,500, and then you go a little deeper, and we've got 1.6% copper over a 16 meter intercept had 152 W1. I'm on page 10, by the way. So I just find that interesting, especially in comparison with the geology makeup of the Southeast Crescent getting weaker. and the copper getting weaker there, and then you're starting shallowish here at 1,500 meters with no copper and not much grammage. There's looks to be a relation between the increased grammage of gold and copper. I don't know if Magic can comment on that, but would that be an expectation if your gold content was increasing, that the copper align with that, or is that just a coincidence?
You see it in a lot of these copper gold porphyries. You know, if you increase one grade, it tends to lead to an increase to the other. I mean, I don't know how significant that relationship is necessarily, like in terms of across the whole ore body. But you are right, at least in the results reported today, that's definitely the case. I think copper, these metals, they like to complex with different things. So, you know, I think copper and many of the other metals that associate themselves with gold, I think where they're located in the ore deposit and obviously subsequently the drilling, it's just a function. I think it's a function of local chemistry.
Yeah.
So I think there will be probably some intercepts that will show a high gold grade, but not necessarily a high copper grade in other parts. I think the relationship holds true though for this stage.
I suppose we've mentioned the two drill results, had 154, had 155, which were outside of the known Havarian mineralized system, but those were old, right? We had those in GGP. We knew those missed last time.
Well, I thought, unless or these two new ones. I can't remember all of them.
I'm pretty sure they're old because I remember the numbers. I remember.
I think that to me is very interesting. It's very interesting how at the minute there's basically nothing north and south along the dike. I don't think that will hold true across the whole extent of the dike. I just think certainly nearby. For
me, I don't know about you guys, but for me, the most encouraging developments and growth potential here is at depth. It's not
100%. The eastern breadth, for me, the eastern breadth is the golden ticket. I think that for me is, and it's just, I don't think that's and I think Newcrest are thinking the same thing because they punched 15 holes.
That's the next stage of this.
We've got 7 assays awaiting for the eastern breadth. Yeah, you know, we've got 8 in this announcement. Every time they put a hole in that, I think they seem to put out excellent results. It just seems obvious that's the place you want to. If you're going to add ounces, I think that is where you do it.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's going to. I think Sean made the comment, didn't he? 20 million ounces in one of his interviews. I think that number is a pretty good. I think that's a really good ball. I reckon that's a good target to shoot for. It's, you know. I think wasn't it at the meeting as well? He said that it took 35 years for Telfer to mine 13 million.
He did, and that was quite important actually. I think because it again spoke to the compact nature and recovery potential of our ore body. So yeah, it's exactly that 35 years.
To me,
13 of their 27 million. So which is why I think we all got to. This is the point where we start moving away from valuing the company on the size of the prize. It now becomes about discount. God, excuse me. It now becomes about discount cash flow analysis. It now becomes about production.
We're changing into a producer
ratios, and you know, we found the beast, and it went to 38p because no one knew how big the beast was. Now we're mining the beast. Now we've got a total different type of investor,
and I think that's where
it's a different company.
Yeah, I agree. And I think now, you know, that 20 million ounce that Sean said, it's a very good target to aim for. You've got to remember as well, 86% conversion rate from resource to reserve as well. That is a huge number. So somebody asked the question, didn't they? If you assume that, I think his question was along the lines of, do we have to factor in? Because I think it was after he said the 13 million ounces. And the 20 million ounces Telfer, and he was like, should we be discounting the amount? And I was like, well, the best way to do it is use the 86%.
Yeah.
And imagine if you did, let me do that on my phone real quick.
If you assume that
20 million.
Healthy, they would have recovered a hell of a lot more ounces, right? So
yeah, basically, yeah,
what
20 million.
recover is we have a better ore body than Telfer.
So, well, basically, we would mine the equivalent of 17.2 million ounces. If you assume an 86% conversion rate of if you got to 20 million ounces, so 17.2, bearing in mind it took them 35 years to mine 13 million at Telfer. This is a generational mine.
Yeah.
So we have no worries here with that. I think the key now is get the ounces on the board. Every mineral resource update with the Eastern Breccia included. Let's get some more ounces on the board. Starting obviously progress that decline, get it down to the ore body. Obviously operationally we want to get that started as soon as possible. Get the cash flow in, which obviously we're entitled to 25%. Well, let's go with 25% of anything that comes out. And obviously, next year I think is really when we should be getting a bit more excited again around the exploration. I mean, I don't know. We probably could be getting some. We don't know what we're going to get out of Jury, but
we might get
Ernest Giles and many of the other exploration projects that are now essentially going to be somewhat paid for out of the money that we've got. If we make another discovery at any one of these sites, Greatland Gold's share price is going to go through the roof again.
Yeah, agreed.
And it will do exactly what I predicted would do. Exactly what it done last time.
We're in so much of a different position to making a discovery now than we were in 2017.
I mean, it's a better position because you've got cash coming in from one deposit whilst you're finding another, and that other discovery. The minute Greatland, if Greatland were to put to the market, discovery hole somewhere else, everyone's going to put proactive investors, LSE, every single investing publication, the headline will probably be along the lines of Greatland Gold potentially finds new Haburon, even if it ain't. It'll be an Ernest Giles, and they will probably say that, even though it won't be the same ore deposit. It'll be exactly what Liam's. It will be parties on. That would be a wonderful situation, because anybody that has got shares from this level essentially is going to be the equivalent of the people that have got shares from fucking 2p when it went up to that would be the analogy I would say. That's the golden scenario, I think, that everybody wants.
I that's why I'm here. I'm here for the son curve.
Yeah, if you get in on, if you're in on that, you ain't. Don't get me wrong, you'll be sat there talking to your grandkids, whatever, or probably if you've made loads and loads of money, to some investing chronicle or something as the next guru of the market. And you can be there like, yeah, it's tough. It was tough in 2022, and all this, the share price was down. I was down like 80%. You could really upset it. You could really say, oh, it's on the breadline arc. I was eating Tesco baked beans night and day. Oh, the kids, they couldn't afford new shoes for school, but no, I stuck with it, and look where I am now. You'd be like the Wolf of Wall Street 2.0. No, I'm running away with it now. I'm running away with it now. But you get the point. Yeah, second Lassonde curve would be a wonderful situation for everybody here.
Yeah. I'm looking through the rest of the drill results. It's it's exactly what we always expect from Avarian, isn't it?
It's quite funny, isn't it? We kind of look at them and go, oh, they're good. We're so desensitized to the numbers now.
50 meters at 2.7 grams. I mean, you can't.
It's the fun. I think it was one. I can't remember which results they were. They put out something like 10 or something, and they put the headline ones out. But there was stuff that they buried in here, some of the drill results they don't even talk about. Make me laugh.
It's crazy, isn't it? It's certainly like the small intercepts they don't talk about. One in here at 173 grams. 173 grams of gold. Wow. Yeah, it's only a meter or 0.8 of a meter. But what's interesting is we don't know what's within that 1 meter box, for example. And if you've got 133 grams within that meter and you're stoping, we could have some very nice production surprises along the way. where you're actually mining some pretty nuggety stuff.
That's
which is where I think Rich's development all comes into play, where you've got this 3-year mine payback, but how great would it be if you just make an extra couple million that month? Because the grade's just that much better, and your output's better. So yeah, I mean, I love the fact that the starter mine is high grade, because you've got that anomaly there where suddenly you can be cash rich exploring this entire sort of region. I'm mixed today. I'm mixed today. I'm only slightly disappointed, which is good. I'm glad I'm not massively disappointed. I expected to be disappointed because we all knew that it was based on a picture in time, which is not what we have today. So it was always expectations. It was always going to be. It's whether or not the market gets their head around that fact. And I've only got 10% to throw at it, but I'll certainly throw my 10% if the market decides that they think this is a negative outcome. I don't
if you've got I'm just looking at one intercept here where they report, it's one of the included ones, where it's like 1.4 meters, 45. They report gold in part per million, but they tell you that 1 part per million is 1 gram per ton. So it's actually very good information for me, because I actually didn't know. I actually didn't know that, which is quite shocking. But so basically, 45 gram per ton, 1.4 meter included within this 70.9 at 2 gram per ton, and they use a cutoff of 30 gram meters gold. I mean, that 1.4. If you were getting, so when I was talking about Ernest Giles, if you're getting lots of veins, and you're going to get like these narrow intercepts, say like, as I said, 5. Let's say you get like 5 meters or 10 meters. You want the grade to be like that.
Yeah.
Because then, obviously, if you got like, let's just say you got a 10 meter at 45 part per million, that's 450 grams per meter. If you got an instant, so that's why you need, and then you need a lot of them in like a nice tight spacing. And that's how you get an economic deposit, when you've got these narrow intercepts. What we've got is nice, juicy, lengthy ones. You don't need them so tight, but thankfully we do. So we get the best of both worlds.
I think what's interesting, I'm just looking at the plan figure on page 52, which highlights the HAD 155 and the HAD 154, and I think we've got to be cognizant of just if you go to that page 52, look how far out on a scale sort of description those two holes are. So they're quite clearly testing the dike, running through each on the north and the south.
About 200 meters outside, isn't it? If you look at that scale,
it's a proper space. But then just scroll down. It's a long way. Scroll down to scroll up. Scroll up to the results for those and look at the depths. So we're looking at HAD 155. They've drilled 257 meters from 837 meters, and HAD 154. They've drilled 1,242 meters depth. That's the depth they've gone. So both are around 250 meter intercepts, but they've gone, one's 830, one's 1,240. Now go back up and look at the Eastern Breccia and look at the depths. So I think whilst we've missed there, and again, Magic, you're going to need to.
That's a very good point, actually.
If I'm joining too many dots here, but those are not at the depths where we might expect the continuation of.
Yeah, that's the conclusion they should make. They can, because they should say that's the best. That's a very good way to look at it. You could say, right, well, we haven't got any crescent, we haven't got any like northern breccia necessarily, or if they are pulling out breccia, it's unmineralized. So the key would be the problem is they have to justify cost. So are they going to sink an 1,800 meter? If they're going to do it, they'll probably only sink one. Yeah. And I would like to think they would have done the modelling that would have suggested that that any anomaly would have been at these levels. So, but then the thing is, you a lot of the times I've seen in the past, these anomalies, they sit above the actual find. So the modelling you do, it actually there's an accuracy problem at times where you don't. So it is. I would agree with you. I actually think it's worth stick one down to
1400.
1400 to 1600.
Stick one down.
And if you stick one down there and you don't get anything, then I think you could then say, okay, well, it's unlikely that, because the Eastern Breccia probably, looking at the way it's modelled, looks like it does fatten out quite nicely. So you would expect it, if you're going to get any meaningful hit, at 1600 meters or so. I think that's worth a shot. I think that would be worth a shot.
And all I'm saying is, in the context of the growth drilling, which we haven't got there yet in the presentation, I'm not sure if they've mentioned the new planned growth drilling. I'm sure we'll get that from GGP tomorrow. But these are old, guys. These are old. We had these from GGP 6 weeks ago. So these are drills from, October, November last year.
Yeah, I think I'm very obviously like the drilling results. We never have to worry
talking about satellite deposits. He's still talking about Havarians around Havarian.
That's kind of what they're doing. Yeah, I don't think that it's worth sticking it down to 1600 because you don't know the Eastern Breccia could stretch out that way.
Yeah. And you know what? They might be sitting there going, "Let's do the most likely and just double check that we don't have any, low."
That's what I think. Maybe that's what they're doing.
They might be saying, "Let's just wait till we get down to the decline, to the bottom of the decline."
This is the point Sean said, didn't he?
Yeah, let's save the cost. We don't have to rush off now. We have our started mine. We have everything we need to go for. And we've got to put our minds in Newcrest's thought process.
I think that's the much smarter. But I think that's so much smarter. Get down. Then test outside when you're already down there. You save loads of money.
Yeah.
It actually gets somewhat paid for out of the tonnage that you're already producing.
And if you put a 300 grand hole down 2,000 meters at the moment, it's not paying for itself.
You don't need to put every ounce onto your feasibility study, whatever, before you go mining. There's no need to do that. You just need a big enough number to say we're going mining.
Decline. We've maxed out the decline, haven't we? So it is totally wasted drilling from a Newcrest perspective if we add any more megaton potential from the starter mine. It's literally we've maxed out the potential. It's 3 megatons. That's what we can do. 2 in the PFS, 3 in the FS. That is the most we can get ore out of that mine. So, and they've got that. They've got the drill density. They've got that. They can do that. So drilling anywhere that's superfluous, I can't say that word, to that is pointless. Yeah. So you've got to put your mind in Newcrest's thinking cap.
Yeah, I agree.
You're looking at these things, don't you?
Indeed. I think that is a cracking place to leave our chat this evening, gentlemen. It's been well over 2.5 hours.
Cool.
And
good showing.
Leave it on slide 55.
Let me just go to slide 55. Just for you. It's just there.
So just look at those dotted black outlines and how small they are. It's beautiful.
And they've just paid epoxy 60 million for 5% of those black lines.
Yeah. So just look at it. October 21. That is currently what they've paid us 60 million.
That's
for.
Exact. That's the way.
If anyone is going to want to try and value this company tomorrow, having held for this length of time, please just sleep on it. I'm not giving you financial advice. Who knows what happens in the morning, but look at that diagram. And if you've come here for the long term and you know what we're looking at, understand the value disconnect there. Understand that this is what everyone in a bear market is looking for, a company that is not priced correctly. And we have a contractual set of circumstances that misprices us. That is an opportunity for people like us who have an intrinsic knowledge of this deposit and this company. And I'm not giving anyone financial advice. Don't go spend your pension on GGP tomorrow morning if it drops 5 or 10%. But please do understand that I'm pretty sure we have an edge. We have an understanding of a value disconnect here. We have an announcement tomorrow paying us for something that is doubled in size since. There is, if the market reacts to that, they're wrong, and you're right, and we're here showing you that.
Am I about right with my little diagram here?
Yes, I like it.
Gentlemen,
I expected you to draw a cock and balls. Let's be honest. It would have been appropriate. It would have been appropriate.
There you go, just for you. Listen, gentlemen, thank you both so much for joining me. I really do appreciate your time, your commentary, your expertise, and your knowledge that's been shared with the community today. To the listeners that are still here, the hardcore of you, thank you so much for joining us for these 2.5 hours. It's respect for staying here that long, listening to us debate and talk about these things. We're going to be all right. Sean Day says so. In Sean we trust. That's what we have to do. He said to me, quote unquote, this is a medium to long term investment. It doesn't matter what happens in the short term. It's noise. Draw it. Stick it in your bottom drawer. We'll see you in 3 years. You won't regret it. I think that's not financial advice, but that to me is what a medium to long term investment is. I think, would you both agree with that? Is that fair to say?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And the risk rewards in our favor. Forget about tomorrow morning. If you've got something to throw in, make your own decisions. None of that matters. This is the end of some uncertainty. I think it's a good result. Let's wait. Let's give Sean the opportunity to bring us some finance.
That's what we got to wait. We got to wait to see what he says.
Days, and let's judge this result on that, because if he walks through the door tomorrow morning with 90% of 123 million fully funded, I mean, I for one am going to be pretty happy with that.
So we've only had one chapter of this big story this evening. That's Newcrest's side of the story. Tune in tomorrow to find out more about Greatland Gold and Sean Day and their side of the story. There's a lot more to come. There's a lot more to give. This mine has only just started its story.
Absolutely. Thanks for the positive chats, by the way, on Liam. I want to give a big shout out to you, dude. That the site you've created gave people another space. It's in its early days, I know, but it's been helpful to most people, and you deserve a lot of respect and kudos for that, mate. It's working brilliantly. Thank you for the community we have on Telegram. We've got something special here, and I'd like to think we give enough back to give everyone an edge from the community, and it's from the community. There's no individual here. There's literally all of us. So thank you, Liam, in particular, for that site and for Telegram and for everything that we get to enjoy here, which makes us hopefully a little better than the average private investor. And if you can stick with us for 3 years, I can guarantee you will be.
Absolutely right. I'm off to bed because I am hoping for an email from someone tomorrow to say you've got an interview. So that's between me, you, and anybody else who's live. This stuff's staying up because I'm expecting an interview at some point tomorrow. It might not happen, but it's on the cards. Right.
I shook Sean's hand. I didn't get a chance to meet him personally until the very end, and I was like, screw this. I'm shaking the man's hand, and I muscled in amongst a few people, and I went, sir, I need to shake your hand. And I said to him very briefly, I help Liam run the Telegram chat, and he went, oh, that's brilliant. I said, I'm not sure I'm going to join Telegram, and I said to him, no, we wouldn't expect you to.
No, not at all. But yeah, you guys have yourself a great evening. If you haven't already, please click like and subscribe. That really does help the old YouTube algorithms. Magic, have you got any final words, just to part in wisdom, sir?
I guess, the deposit is a beast. It's growing every single time we see these drill results come out. Stick with it. I think if you're already in, and yeah, I just think long, like you say, medium to long term, it could be a very good decision. So yeah, that's all I can say really.
Thank you both, guys. It's been a good evening, and I'm pleased I was sober for the first half.
Super. Gentlemen, thank you very much. Everybody else, thank you for joining us. My name's Liam. You've been watching GGP Help TV live, and good night to you all.